person who has a finance background, the issue of cryptocurrency and the issue of the eyes, where is the connection? The second question, Honorable Speaker, and allow me to ask this important, Honorable Speaker. The second question, Honorable Speaker, this country, would I be in order to say there is a disconnect between intelligence collection and what the security arms are doing? Because I see us being reactive instead of being proactive. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Member next to Kamket. Member for Kajiado North, yes. Give him the mic.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask the CSS present, and specifically the CS Kindiki. Under our laws, bribery is a crime. The people who are the WorldCoin people, they were paying a token for them to get something from you. And
7,000 cannot be a token. That's a lot of money.
Yes, they were, no, my apologies, Mr. Speaker. They were paying 7,000. That means that is bribery, because they are giving you something for them to get something from you. Out of the charges that you have said they are crimes that have been committed, I would want you to come out clear that you will charge somebody for bribery, because bribery is against the laws of the Republic of Kenya. Number two, on the information that they picked from people. This house, when we asked this question, we asked ourselves, where did they take it? Where is that information? The statement, Mr. Speaker, did not bring out the issue of where is the information that they had already picked from people. Because even as we talk of the future, what they did on that particular day on the specific individuals. And because I have a lot of confidence with the Honorable Kindiki, I want you to answer me that question, because I know you're very capable, unlike what the Honorable Zamzam wants to intend, that you do not know how to do things. I know you are capable, competent, and the Honorable Kindiki is a straight shooting professor. Thank you very much.
Honorable Mawade. Is that Mawade next to, or is it Basil?
Mawade.
Mawade, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the question to the CS Interior and also the ICT CS. This was a very huge lapse on our security, because if we can allow some strangers to come in and harvest the identification biometrics of Kenyans, what will they be able to do next? The other question is, just a few days earlier, we had seen our systems, our IT systems being hacked. Yes, we may deny, we can use all good English, but our IT system were interrupted by strangers. What measures are we taking to ensure, one, that doesn't happen again? Two, as far as the Interior CS is concerned, what measures are we taking again as to ensure that the harvesting of people's biodata will not happen again? Also, where is this information being?
Yes, what's the out of order, Ruku?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is the member in order to ask a question which already has been answered clearly by the two ministers, unless the member was not in this house or he was asleep when that question is asking when it was being addressed
Order.
by the two ministers in a very appropriate manner. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order. A member has a right to ask. Order. Order, Mawathe. A member has a right to ask a question if he is not satisfied with the previous answer. Rindikiri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order. Yes, Mawathe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Hold on.
There's no way. There is no way that will allow somebody to go. No, Mr. Speaker, he must withdraw. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
It is very wrong. Let me start off.
I've already defended.
Yes,
you.
allow me. Just allow me, Mr. Speaker. It is very wrong for the mono to say something that is not derogatory about the other member. He must withdraw. He must withdraw. Otherwise, we will engage. We are polite, but we are not afraid. We will engage. That's not the right way to go about it. He must be.
Sit down. Honorable Mawathe. Order. Order. Rindikiri. The last one. Ministers, get ready.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to ask the two cabinet secretaries. This Data Protection Commission, under which ministry does the Data Protection Unit lie? And two, the Data Protection Unit has been carrying out investigations on the activities of the matter at hand. Mr. Speaker, I would like to ask my question through you. Mr. Speaker, my question is to the two ministers. Under which ministry does the Data Protection Unit belong to? Mr. Speaker, we know this Data Protection Unit in the former government was a unit that was being used for other purposes. Mr. Speaker, you know that this department was aware of the activities of this company at hand a few months ago. And up to now, we are being told this unit is still carrying out investigations. How confident can we be on the operations and the management of this unit? Because we haven't gotten a clear answer from them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Speaker, there is one question that I asked that have not been answered. And this question is very important because it touches on the matter and the people who are expecting money from this site. Honorable Speaker, the site, the WorldCon site, right now has been pulled down. And this site, Honorable Speaker, is the one that is holding the 7,000 that these people who scanned their irises are expecting that money. Honorable Speaker, I'm asking a simple question. The shutting down of this site, does it relate in any way to the investigation that is ongoing? Or, Honorable Speaker, these people have taken what they wanted and they have ran away? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Ministers.
Honorable Speaker.
Order, Honorable Mawathe. Why is your hand up in the air all the time?
Honorable Speaker, in response to the question whether the country is safe, Mr. Speaker, I want to assure the House and the country that Kenya is safe. I also want to add that as we go towards a technological world, we must, as a nation, be alive to the fact that the risks that exist in the physical space are the same risks that exist in the digital space. So one of the reasons why perhaps this particular threat that we experienced looks a bit unique is because this is a new space. And Mr. Speaker, I want to prepare the country that even as we go towards embracing technology as we must be alive to the fact that there are risks in the digital space of an equal nature, if not greater, than the risks in the physical space. Honorable Speaker, another concern or supplementary issue which has been raised is the need for us to clarify whether we are prepared to deal with the risks in the digital space in the same manner as we have dealt with other threats to our national security. Mr. Speaker, sir, I confirm in the affirmative that the government will deal with all threats to our national security wherever they arise from, whether from the physical space, the digital space, from the technology space, or any space whatsoever. And therefore, this is a serious threat just like terrorism. It's a serious threat just like banditry. It's a serious threat just like trade in narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances. It is a threat just like those who want to intimidate us to use politics to commit crime. We will be firm with all threats to our national security wherever they arise. Thirdly, Honorable Speaker, a question has been asked on the money that was promised to the people of Kenya in exchange for their data. Honorable Speaker, I would not like to speak a lot on this area because as I have said, we have made great steps in the investigations, and I don't want to preempt investigations. But allow me, Honorable Speaker, to say that from us, as security managers, as the Ministry of Interior, what raised the red flag was the monetary inducement. For us, that is one of the earliest indications. And the moment it became apparent that that exercise that started, as I said, it was done for 2 days, and on the third day, we were clear that crimes are being committed from where we sit. So that inducement for us is an area of concern. The other red flag, other than the area of inducement, is that we suspect, again, that our understanding of the data protection law is that the processors of data must obtain consent. We are of the opinion that if at all any consent was sought, which is doubtful, that consent was not informed consent. And that's why we believe we will nail down people, we'll pin down people. It's just a matter of time. Honorable Speaker, a question has been asked on whether we are investing in crime prevention, and I want to answer in the affirmative. Because going forward, we are increasingly investing and concentrating on preventing crime before it happens, or arresting crime in the earliest opportunity, without, again, and I think this is an important clarification, Honorable Speaker, without, again, overly interfering with the ordinary activities that are allowed under the law. So by the time we come in, we must have reasonable grounds to suspect that crimes are being committed. Honorable Speaker, the other issue has been raised is on why we took a bit of time and only acted after things started happening. I would like to say the activities of this entity are not just the subject matter of a security investigation in Kenya alone. There are many other countries around the world, a few countries, and many of them are first world countries who are asking the same questions that we're asking today, including 2 countries in Europe, 1 country in Asia. So I don't think it is fair to say that perhaps the Kenyan authorities have not been prudent or alert enough, because I know the same issues have been raised in the United Kingdom, in France, in India, in Germany, and a few other countries. Honorable Speaker, we are certain that we will bring accountability, and I think there is no cause of alarm. In terms of the data which have been harvested so far, Honorable Speaker, we have preservation orders that data should not be processed. We have a court order, but we are informed by the experts that even if such data is already stored in the cloud, we are informed that it is still retrievable. And therefore, again, there is no cause of alarm, because we already know our people, the numbers of our people that had already gone through this process. And then finally, Honorable Speaker, I would like to just assure the people of Kenya that I know we are a very political country, which is a good thing, because democracy is supposed to bring the kind of vibrancy that we see in our space here as a country. But I want to plead with the representatives of the people, the honorable members, that on matters national security, we try and remove our politics and our democratic engagement from that space. That way, we'll be able to preserve the country for ourselves and our children. Thank you.
Speaker, I'm concerned that the cabinet secretaries are not treating this matter with the seriousness it deserves. Instead of getting responses as representatives of the people, we are getting lectures on things we know and the basis upon which we raised this issue with you. Honorable Speaker, I asked a simple question: whether this company, as a foreign company, is registered. And the Cabinet Secretary for Interior is saying it appears to be registered. The Cabinet Secretary in charge of ICT is saying it is registered, they are dealing with operational issues. Could we know? Because there is a legal consequence to a foreign company doing business in the country if they are not registered. In which case, Honorable Speaker, even before we check what they are doing with the data mined, the foreign agents of the company should be in court, and the fine is prescribed in Section 974. Not lectures on democracy, what people should do.
Honorable Kaluma, I thought the minister had earlier said that the WorldCoin Group are not registered in Kenya, but they have local collaborators. Isn't that what you said? Yes. So your pursuit should be, who are the local collaborators? Are they going to be charged with conspiracy to commit crimes and all those other chains of criminal activities? And I think that is up to the minister to answer. Owalo, can we hear from the second minister before, unless it's a serious point of order? Yes, Honorable
thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just arise on a point of order because, you know, the House has allowed the CSS to come and answer matters of concern to Kenyans. But the CS of Interior has just told us that he does not want issues that are political. Now, when members of this House ask questions, they're obviously political because we are representatives of the people. And I think that's what the Honorable Kaluma has alluded to. Instead of giving us a lecture, kindly just respond to our questions, because there is no politics other than our representation of the people. Mr. Speaker, kindly guide the minister.
Zamzam, are you also on a point of order?
Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi swali langu lilikuwa tu dhahiri kuwa Kenya tuko katika hali tata ikiwa anga zetu zitakuwa zimeingiliwa. Na mheshimiwa pale alinikosoa akaweka kama ambayo namdhulumu yule minister, ni yale aliyosema rais wa taifa hili kuwa hawa ministers kuna vitu vingi hawavielewi. Mimi nimeuliza hii security ya nchi yetu iko sawa katika mikono yake, kwa vile tumeingiliwa sana. Yeye amekuja anazungumza mambo ya siasa. Hapa si siasa, kwa sababu hata mimi akaunti yangu pia ilikuwa hacked. Ndio maana nauliza, si masala ya siasa.
Owalo, we can't have endless chains of points of order.
Mr. Speaker, I think we had already indicated earlier, and I want to repeat, that WorldCoin as an entity is not a legally registered company in Kenya. Through the registrar, the Business Registration Service. But it is registered as a data collector. In terms of operationalization, WorldCoin has been undertaking its activities through a different entity, which is registered in Kenya. And it's on the basis of this.
Owalo,
Yeah.
the issue that Kaluma was asking is, if this entity is not registered,
Yes.
why did you allow an entity that has no legal status to start collecting data from Kenyans? I think that is the big question.
The issue here, Mr. Speaker, we have got many.
And hand in hand with that, so that we save time, because your colleague is waiting behind there, you should also answer Makali Mulus. And I, as the Speaker of this House, went and also did some research on Bitcoins. And there's nowhere in the world I found that to trade in cryptocurrency, you have to have your iris mined by any company. So that is also something that should assure Kenyans and members of parliament.
Mr. Speaker, WorldCoin was registered in Kenya as a data collector, not courtesy of the Business Registration Service. The prerequisites for purposes of registration as a data collector does not include or does not entail being registered as a company operating in Kenya. We are dealing with the digital space in this instance, Mr. Speaker. And there's many other companies operating in Kenya which are not legally registered by the Business Registration Service. The other issue was on the Office of the Data Commissioner, Mr. Speaker. The Office of the Data Protection Commissioner, for purposes.
Yes, Naomi Wako, what is your point of order?
Thank you.
Hold the minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to know why they have allowed them to collect our data. Simple. Yeah.
Minister, that is the
I
bottom
think-
line, Minister.
Can we be a bit patient so that I do justice to this issue?
Okay.
The company that has
Order,
been
give the
collecting
minister
data.
an opportunity to answer. You have asked him questions, let him answer.
The company that has been collecting the data in Kenya is not WorldCoin. It is a surrogate of WorldCoin, Mr. Speaker. And these people have been apprehended by the security agencies. Two, the Office of the Data Commissioner, Mr. Speaker, operates under policy guidance from the Ministry of Information, Communication, and the Digital Economy.
Mary Kaitani, what is your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, is it in order for the Cabinet Secretary for ICT to say that they can actually allow companies to operate in this country without any registration? Because that is, we've had his statement, and in his statement he's actually purporting that people can actually come into this country and operate without any registration. Can he tell us, is it in order for a company to come and operate in this country without proper registrations and proper identification before operations begin?
Minister, go on. Honorable members, let him finish answering. If I find it necessary to do another round, I will. Honorable Eliud Owalo, are you done?
Yes, I respond.
You are consulting.
Yeah, Honorable Speaker, we were consulting because to the best of my mind, I am not sure that that obligation is in the current Data Protection Act. And for me, subject to confirmation, I just asked our PSC for ICT to confirm if that obligation is in the Data Protection Act in terms of procedure for registration. Mr. Speaker, protect me, I finish the answer, and then the member can, yeah. So, Mr. Speaker.
Let him finish. Let him finish order.
He wanted to answer according to the government, not according to his mind. According to the government.
Go on, Kindiki.
Mr. Speaker, to the best of my mind, the Data Protection Act does not obligate the registration of data processors to be companies registered under the law of Kenya. And I've said with a caveat, I could be wrong. If it does, then definitely that is an oversight. If it does not, then it means we must amend the law going forward in consonance with the sentiments by the members to make sure that that becomes an accountability, an extra accountability layer for the future.
Yes, honorable members, I want to end here. Order. Yes, Kakai Bisau, what is your point of order? Minister, go hold your horses. I've given the floor to Bisau.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Sitting here and listening at the way the two ministers are answering these questions, first of all, we have to remember that on that particular day, our country was under attack. And in fact, we thank you for coming together because now you give an impression that at least you're coordinating issues. But before that, we thought that you're completely not coordinating issues. What I want to say, Mr. Speaker, the CS Internal Security talked about it happened on the first day, they investigated on the second day, on the third day. That shows a lot of laxity. We cannot have such an issue where we are under attack. It takes 3 days and we are saying we investigated. I know technology is moving at a very fast pace. And this is not the first or the last time. We're going to have most of these things happening. So what I would like the ministers to tell us, what are the mitigation measures you are putting in place so that when we have another technology attack, we are able to ensure that Kenyans are not suffering. And remember, those that were affected mostly were the people under the pyramid because there was some token given to them. So tell us what you're going to put in place to mitigate this. And lastly, we would like the perpetrators to be tabled and made it public. Thank you.
Kangoko Bowen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, the confusion we saw between the two cabinet secretaries, Mr. Speaker, is again has been brought to this House. Mr. Speaker, I would suggest it this way, Honorable Speaker. In fact, the more they explain to us or they answer these questions, the more we are confused. Mr. Speaker, I would suggest if you give them more time, they go and reconcile their thoughts. At the same time, they look at the facts and then bring a correct information to this House, Mr. Speaker. Because from the start of this session, Mr. Speaker, The cabinet secretaries, they have been taking us round. At one point, they are saying the companies are not registered. And at another point, they are saying they are registered, but only for data collections. Mr. Speaker, we are not going to get correct answers from the cabinet secretaries now. I would ask that, Mr. Speaker, you direct that they go back and they bring us a correct and satisfactory answers.
All honorable members, for avoidance of doubt, honorable ministers, the Companies Act, Section 974, says as follows. A foreign company shall not carry on business in Kenya unless it's repeated, it is registered under this part, or it has applied to be so registered and the application is pending. So what WorldCoin is doing is illegal, even under the Companies Act, but I agree with Kangoko Bowen that ministers, you can see and feel, you can stop disparaging our ministers. You can see and feel the representatives of the people from where they sit. And I think this was captured by Makali Mulu. What has the mining of Kenyans' iris got to do with cryptocurrency? I think that is the issue. And that you are investigating, I'll give because like the young MP from John Paul, you are from Igembe, has been agitatingly coming to whisper to me that KICC is a government property. Who licensed these people to have long queues of Kenyans on government premises? Those are some of the questions MPs were asking. And I would want to encourage you as our ministers to account to the people of Kenya through their representatives in this House to get out to the bottom of this matter. And I also encourage you, ministers, that your multi-agency investigation team seem to include the Data Protection Commission, which actually gave authority to these people to do what they were doing. So they cannot possibly investigate themselves. And therefore, I would encourage you that for purposes of impartiality and openness, you may have to exclude them from your multi-agency team because you might find them culpable as well. I want us to end here so that we get in the Minister for Defense. Ministers, you are released to go. You will come back next Wednesday. And the next time you come, I encourage you because harmonize your thinking so that when you come, we have at least one of you speaking on behalf of both of you. Professor Kindiki?
Sorry, Speaker, to request to speak after you've already given your directive. I wanted to suggest as follows.
Yes.
This matter is very complex.
Yes.
As you have already noted about the KICC facility and so on, it involves so many ministries, departments, agencies.
Yes.
This is my fear, Honorable Speaker, that unless maybe you can accommodate all the agencies here, I would have suggested, because the members have raised very valid issues and I agree with them, this is a very serious national issue. If there is a way to package there is the security aspect, there is the ICT aspect, there is the business registration aspect, there is so many other things. And perhaps maybe that way we can help the members so that we don't bore you and we don't come here and because these answers are all over the place And it's not enough for one ministry or even the two ministries to respond conclusively, including our agencies. I wanted to plead, Speaker, you consider whether there is another way in which we can provide the same information to the House, maybe separately, maybe at departmental committees and so forth. And finally, from where we sit, we are willing to be of service to the House as many times as possible, but in a more organized way so that we also don't waste Parliament's time with endless repetition of the same subject.
I get your point, Minister. What I'll do, I have enough people to segregate the issues, and I'll give you advice through formal communication. As you leave now, the direction is that you come on Wednesday, but in between, once we are able to segregate the issues to see which ones are security, which ones are ICT, they look intertwined now, and which ones are other departments, we'll be able to guide you accordingly. You have a valid concern. Colin, yes, Shakil, I want to close this.
It was very important, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg your indulgence. The issue of the information that has already been mined, I wanted to ask if the Minister for IT and Internal Security, both of them, can make applications wherever that information has gone, because they have a way to find what information was routed to where, to make an application at the destination of that information for it to be held to our order. You know, I don't know. The
Minister already said that they have gone to court. They have orders to preserve the data already mined.
That is
and that even the data stored in the clouds is retrievable.
But that's a court in Kenya, sir. What we will hear later on is the United Kingdom court or the American court. No application was served upon them, and they, as such, could not retain that information. So I was urging that, since we can find out, even our telephone calls, we can know where it's going. The information that has been transmitted already should be now. We identify where it is and put an application in the court of that.
The ministers have heard you. Ministers,
thank you, sir.
If the agencies will extend extra territorial investigation, so be it. I'm sure you have got collaborative processes with other agencies elsewhere. Can you usher in the Minister for Defense? The Minister for Security comes in, I acknowledge the following schools in the public and speakers gallery: Elangata Enterit Primary School from Narok, South Narok; All Saints Kamoyo Preparatory School from Mosop, Nandi; Kapchoge Primary School from Marakwet East, Elgeyo Marakwet; Sitotwo Primary School from Keio South, Elgeyo Marakwet; Kapkoiga Girls High School from Keses, Uasin Gishu. On my behalf and on your behalf, I welcome the schools to the House of Parliament. Honorable members, the Minister for Defense is now in the House. Where's my order paper? Minister, we have welcomed the House, a house where you have been for years. You are now back with a different hat. You are now here to answer questions. I will start with the question number 008 of 2023. The member for Ugunja, Opio Andai. The chair is aware that Opio and I is not in the house. Him and his majority counterpart are engaged in discussions elsewhere on, for purposes of bringing tranquility in the country. Is there anybody who has been tasked to ask that question on his behalf? Honorable Mwenje, I will only allow you if you have instructions in writing. If you don't have instructions in writing, I'll... Yes. If you have no written instructions, you have no authority to ask the question. The chair must take responsibility that in case anything untoward is said, we hold members responsible, and the member will come back and say you had no authority to ask the question. And you'll have no defense. So we leave it there. The question is not dropped, it's put aside. And in the event Honorable Duale doesn't come to the House so soon, I'll direct him to send a written answer to the Honorable Opio and I. Honorable Minister, you'll send a written answer to the Honorable Wandai. Next question is a question 229 of 2023, member from Mwingi North, Paul Nzengu. Paul Nzengu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, I do not have a hard copy of the question. I was looking for it, but I cannot find it. So I don't know whether. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I got the question. The question is to the Cabinet Secretary, Defense. And the question is, outline any peaceful milestone and other achievement attained by sending our Kenya Defense Forces troops to the Democratic Republic of Congo. And number two is explain the exit strategy for our troops from DRC. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I am appearing before the House in accordance with the Standing Order 42, Section A to G. And Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. I'm coming back home. Mr. Speaker, the Kenya Defense Forces who are serving under the East Africa Community Regional Force are in DRC and more so in Eastern Congo, following a resolution of heads of state and government after admitting DRC to be a member of the East Africa Community in their 22nd Ordinary Summit of the EAC Heads of State and Government held in Arusha on 22nd July 2022, and it approved, among many other interventions, the immediate establishment and deployment of EAC Regional Force in Eastern DRC. Mr. Speaker, the mandate was to help deal with negative forces in the spirit of a collective security under a two-pronged approach, the political and the military track. In the context of the military track, Mr. Speaker, which I have the benefit to discuss and give an answer to this House, the EAC Chief of Defense Forces implemented the decision of establishing a regional force that was subsequently approved by the heads of state. Thereafter, the Kenya Defense Forces deployed in DRC from August of 2022 to operate specifically in Eastern DRC alongside troops from the Republic of Burundi, Republic of South Sudan,
and the Republic of Uganda. Mr. Speaker, in this deployment, the Kenya Defense Forces contingent to ICRAF went through the legal framework and the constitution of our country, in the sense that the National Security Council approved it, and Mr. Speaker, the National Assembly, this august house, in conformity with the provisions of Article 240, subsection 8A of our Constitution, empowered the National Security Council and the Ministry of Defense to deploy national forces and also KDF outside our country for both regional and international peace support operations, and that approval was granted, Mr. Speaker. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, the East Africa Community Regional Force, which Kenya Defense Forces is part of, is premised on Chapter 8 of the UN Charter, which encourages regional mechanisms to deal with the matters relating to the maintenance of international peace and security before referring the matter to the UN Security Council. Speaker, let me now come to the question. What are the milestones and the achievements of the Kenya Defense Forces who are serving under the East Africa Regional Force? So, Speaker, prior to the KDF deployment in DRC, the M23, which is one of the main armed groups in North Kivu, was at the threshold of capturing a very important city called Goma, which has a strategic location and has a major population center. There were only 7 kilometers to that city. An occurrence that could have destabilized DRC and the whole of this region. Because, Mr. Speaker, Eastern Congo primarily uses the port of Mombasa. So there was an economic interest. There was a regional interest in terms of peace and security. At the same time, Mr. Speaker, before our deployment, the main supply routes were inaccessible due to security. There was a lot of interruption on the food supply and humanitarian operations in that part of DRC. There was huge humanitarian crisis, a lot of IDPs, Mr. Speaker. And this precipitated the consequence of deploying the ICRAF in that area, and these are the achievements that we can today be proud of. Speaker, number one, the M23 armed groups, particularly who were in the area where the Kenya Defense Forces are stationed, withdrew from their previously occupied territories, including safeguarding the areas around Goma, and they withdrew from the areas within the ICRAF joint operation area, which was more so the KDF area. And this relieved the pressure on the government of DRC. Hence, the threat on Goma was saved from the control of M23. This created, Mr. Speaker, an elusive window for the settlement of the security challenges following years of conflict. Two, Mr. Speaker, the ceasefire between M23 and the armed forces of the Democratic Republic of Congo, which was achieved because of the presence of KDF, and Mr. Speaker, let me say it, that the force commander of the East Africa Community Regional Force is a Kenyan. General Nyaga was there, Major General Nyaga, and today we have Major General Kiugu. This has really allowed the political track to take shape. It facilitated the commencement of the political track, which is spearheaded by the former President of the Republic of Kenya, Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, as a facilitator. M23, Mr. Speaker, has indicated conditional readiness for pre-cantonment, which is a critical step towards the disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration of those communities which have been affected by the security situation in Eastern DRC. 3, Mr. Speaker, through the East Africa Regional Force, which Kenya is part of it, the Bunagana, Bunagabo, Kibumba, Goma, and Kichanga, Sake, Goma, main supply routes are now active, hence the enabling movement of commerce, service, and people, and more importantly, facilitating the access of humanitarian supplies. Fourthly, Mr. Speaker, the deployment led to the gradual return of refugees and IDPs to areas which are now under the East Africa Regional Force control, resulting to the reduction in crime and violence against non-combatants, this being a critical mandate of the protection of civilians. Mr. Speaker, I was there last week, 3 days I spent in Eastern DRC in visiting our troops and talking to the leadership, my colleagues in DRC. You'll see there's a sense of stability and a protection of civilians from armed conflict. Mr. Speaker, the East Africa Regional Force has also continued to support the program, which was part of what the head of state agreed, for setting up the disarmament areas, for establishing the infrastructure for demobilization of all the armed groups, and for establishing community rehabilitation and stabilization programs. A key leader engagements within the joint operation area. So, Speaker, this is in support of the peaceful coexistence among communities while progressively facilitating the restoration of good governance and the reestablishment of social amenities such as schools and health sectors in those areas before the deployment of Kenyan Defense Forces serving under ICRAF. Speaker, ICRAF jointly with the MONUSCO, and MONUSCO is the United Nations mission in Congo, and the representative of the government of DRC have identified suitable, important pre-cantonment sites at Bunagabo, which has enabled the government of DRC to initiate the demobilization, the disarmament, and the community rehabilitation and stabilization. Finally, Mr. Speaker, the last achievement is the initial deployment of the Kenyan contingent as the first boots on the ground in the joint operation area, has secured and has set conditions for deployment of other contingents in the multi-sectoral theater or sector of North Kivu, meaning Kenya has demonstrated much needed leadership in a crisis situation. And what I mean is, it was KDF that first went to that theater for the first 4 months. It's after the success, the achievements, that our colleagues from Burundi, South Sudan, and Uganda are now part of the wider multinational force in that area. Speaker, the second part of the question was, what is our exit strategy for KDF troops who are serving under the ICRAF from DRC? Speaker, the East Africa Regional Force was first deployed for an initial mandate of 6 months that lapsed on 30th March 2023. And thereafter, under the leadership of the heads of state, it was extended to 8th of September 2023. In effort to chart the way forward, Mr. Speaker, a technical evaluation team comprising of experts from all our member states, the East African member states, was constituted in the last heads of state and government summit in Bujumbura, and their main role was to assess the ICRAF mandate, assess its achievement, and assess its way forward within the mandate implementation, and render a report to the EAC Sectoral Council of Defense Ministers, which, Mr. Speaker, will take place between the 21st and 23rd of this month in Nairobi, And in this regard, Mr. Speaker, based on that report, on the restoration of peace and security in Eastern DRC will be a desired condition in which will tell us the military success and the eventual exit from the mission. Nevertheless, Mr. Speaker, in my concluding remark, the conditions could culminate in Kenya's exit and aircraft exit, because it is not Kenya which is exiting. It is all the multinational troops within aircraft, Kenya included, that will exit. So if the East African Community heads of state and government fail to get renewal of the aircraft current mandate upon its expiry on 8th of September, if for any reason the government of Kenya decides to withdraw KDF, and one of the reasons can be even this House through a motion asking the executive and the National Security Council with very good reasons to withdraw from Eastern Congo and from the multinational force. In the event the government of Democratic Republic of Congo withdraws its consent and decides that aircraft should leave, and in the event the mission becomes untenable in terms of security. Those are the scenarios in which KDF can be withdrawn from their performance under the East Africa Regional Force. So, Mr. Speaker, our mandate is until 8th of September. At the Defense Headquarters, we always have a plan to make sure that in the event of the 4 scenarios, we will bring back our troops safe and sound. And Mr. Speaker, finally, it is not only, KDF troops are not only serving under aircraft. Within the DRC, Eastern Congo, under the UN mission, we have over 250 quick response team, our special forces serving under the UN. We have our communication and signal battalion serving under the UN mandate in Congo. Those are working within the confine of the US mandate. But for aircraft, our mandate ends on 8th of September. The Council of Ministers, which I am a member, will sit on 21st and 23rd to look at the technical team evaluating the achievements and the way forward. And then the heads of states will meet 1 week later. If they give the extension, well and good, we'll be in DRC because we have done a lot. If the extension is not granted, I want to assure this House and the country that our troops will come back home safe and secure. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Zengo, I think it's as clear as that. Do you want supplementary?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the CS for the information that he has given us. This question came up because there were concerns that since when Kenyan troops went to DRC, the relationship between Kenyans and Congolese people started being wasted, and it is a concern whether this intervention, is it beneficial or not? Number 2, Mr. Speaker, the CS has told us that all the IDPs are moved. I want him to confirm whether the IDPs have really agreed to go back to Goma, because the information that I have, which I cannot prove whether it's true or not, but since he has been there in the last 1 week, can he confirm to the House that indeed, because of Kenyan troops and the aircraft, that group of East Africa, that really the IDPs have gone back? And thirdly, at what point did... this is important, Mr. Speaker, because there is a time when the Congolese president had to ask for reinforcement from SADC, the Southern African countries, to bring their troops. Did we fail? Did our troops fail? Or what necessitated the reinforcement from southern countries? Thank you.
I'll give one joyrider. One joyrider. Member for Migori.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. First, I would like to congratulate our Kenyan soldiers who are in DRC. They are trying their best. But I would like to ask the Honorable Minister that since our troops went to DRC, we have seen refugees coming from DRC and flocking into Kenya. I had an opportunity to go to Kitale Showground and meet the refugees from DRC. The purpose of sending our troops was to help DRC get peace in their own country. Are you convinced that our soldiers are doing enough? Because even in the recent days, there was news that there were some places that the rebels attacked, women were raped, children were killed. Places like Rugari, Kitashanga, Mweso, Kiwanja, they were attacked. And the majority who were killed were women and children. Are you convinced that our soldiers are doing enough? Or if not, why don't you look for another way out to help DRC so that they get their peace and stop being refugees in other people's country? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Okay, Ferdinand, you'll be the second joyrider, second and last.
Thank you very much, the CS for defense. And I think it's just common sense, much as there could be some complaint, but I want to agree with you that the Eastern DRC actually had problems. And I think we read widely, Mr. Speaker, the opening of the Eastern DRC has actually enabled us to get most of the export coming through Mombasa to DRC and across. So I want to take this opportunity and thank you, the Minister, for doing what you are doing. And I think what she's saying is true. I've also heard the same thing, but those could be just noises in the past. But as far as I'm concerned, there's a lot of benefit. And in fact, that has enabled DRC to join the East African community. And we actually, there's a way we're opening up the region. And therefore, I want to take this opportunity to thank the Minister for the work being done. Please keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. That's not a question, it's a compliment. Owen Baya, you'll be the last. Ruku,
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, allow me to ask this question to the Honorable Minister, who is a ranking member of this House. Who was, I think that rank does not go away, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to ask about the Banyamulenge in Eastern DRC, that they have been excluded from the talks that are being headed by the Kenyan delegation led by the former president. The Banyamulenge, as you know, are cross-cutting. They're both in Rwanda and in Congo. But in these talks, they're one of the oppressed organization, or community. And unfortunately, when our former president held the talks, they were removed from the table. And they are suffering. And their leader, Professor Lazare, is incarcerated and nobody knows where he is. And they have been asking Kenya to help them. Unfortunately, this information doesn't seem to reach the former president's desk because they have been blocked. Because it is said the former president is friends with the current president of Congo, and therefore he is more siding with the current Congo regime other than accommodating the other. I do not know whether President Uhuru is being an impartial arbiter in the DRC Congo, or he has taken sides and therefore blocking other people who are aggrieved from accessing the negotiation table. And one of the people is Lazare Rukunda. He's a professor. He runs a small university. He was arrested last 2 weeks, and he's been incarcerated. He's been held in Comunicando, and his family doesn't know where he is. I think, Honorable Minister, you have a responsibility to ensure that Kenya is a good arbiter in these discussions and that everybody in the Congo is protected. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Minister, answer those short questions very quickly. We got the next question.
Speaker, I agree with the Honorable Member for Mwingi on the IDPs. Not all IDPs have gone back. It's a huge crisis. If you go to the road between Goma to Kibumba, you'll find IDPs. But gradually, now that there's peace and security and stability, you will find, particularly where the Kenyan troops are, people are going back to their homes, people are planting their farms. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, my good sister, the Member of Parliament for Migori, really asked me about the issues to do with women and all that. I think one of the mandates that ICRAF and also the Kenya Defense Forces have done and achieved in Eastern DRC, and I saw it, that they are really taking care of the most vulnerable parts of the society, which is one of the things that we can credit our forces, protecting women, children, elderly. In fact, 2 days ago, Mr. Speaker, our own forces helped a lady deliver twins in an area called Kibumba. They are providing water. And even what the member from Mwingi, Mheshimiwa Mwingi North said, is that the clip of the video you see going round, those are old clips. If a committee of this house happen to visit, you'll see the Kenyan troops who have been there are very much welcome. And if you go to these cities, Kisangani, Beni, Goma, you'll find huge Kenyan businesses in the petroleum sector, in commodities. So, and that part of the world, again, is an area where Swahili is spoken. Honorable Baya, Mr. Speaker, I really want you to indulge me and maybe invoke the standing order. That is an internal political matter of DRC. And I don't want to discuss it because you are a long-ranking foreign minister. I don't want to be quoted that I am discussing personal, political, internal issues of the government. Our troops are in that theater. They are under the DRC government. I don't want to take and discuss politics. So you'll ask me, Banyamulenge, they are known there as M23. Mr. Speaker, I don't want to say anything on that. Maybe when he gets an opportunity and get the former president who is leading the political track, then they can have a chat. So I can't discuss, Mr. Speaker. I really, you'll forgive me. Of course, the one for Honorable Ferdinand, Mr. Speaker, was a comment. But Mr. Speaker, I want to say it off the cuff. Apart from restoring peace and security in DRC, and in Somalia, in all our regional, our neighbors, Mr. Speaker, we have an economic interest. That part of DRC is where the port of Mombasa is a key player, where many Kenyans, Equity Bank, Mr. Speaker, is the largest bank in that country. KCB, Mr. Speaker, has bought the biggest local bank there. There are many Kenyans. So apart from making sure a stable, secure DRC, Mr. Speaker, is good for the economy of our country, is good for regional trade, is good for regional integration. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Rook, what is it? I want to close this and go to the next question.
Mr. Speaker, for any nation which has developed, most of them, about 80% of the developed nation, they have military as part of the economic plan. And it will be important if the minister can stipulate clearly what is the military's, how the government is integrating military into the economic plan so that we can be able to come out of poverty as a nation. It is important when the military is deployed in Congo, in Somalia, and many other countries around Africa, we need, as a nation, to be able to know clearly how does that fit within our economic plan. It is extremely important, Mr. Speaker, and this is something which has been avoided over the years by the Kenyan military. It is important for the Kenyan military to ensure it is playing a critical role in the economic development of this country, not only the security. And this is a matter of history for those who are students of international relations and diplomacy, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Mjomba, what is it?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Allow me first to congratulate the Minister, the Honorable Ranking Member of this House. I believe his ranking status is still active, for executing the questions of the day in a very well-informed manner. But, Mr. Speaker, I would want to ask the Honorable Bare Duale to tell us what are the deliverables of the forces when they go to such missions, and how do they measure deliverables in comparison with our expectations as a country, just like my colleague, Honorable Ruku, has asked. What are our gains when we send these troops to those countries? How do we benefit as Kenya? Other than just saying that we have regional peace, how do the individual troops members, our soldiers, benefit when they go to these missions? Honorable Speaker, I would also want to ask Honorable Duale, since November 22, what have we achieved as Kenya since we sent these troops to the regions? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Regional obligations do not necessarily carry economic benefits. It is a moral duty to your region. Yes, what is your point of order, my able
Yes,
assistant?
Honorable Speaker, you partly responded to my matter of concern. My worry is that there are matters of the nation we could be discussing in the context of our regional intervention, which may not be prudent. In fact, may call for in-camera proceedings if necessary. So I wanted to request your intervention, Honorable Speaker, that those matters we are raising, both by the Honorable Ruku and my good sister Muchomba, could be collateral. They are not matters to be discussed in the context that we are proceeding now. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
We'll go to question 230 of 2023. Honorable Duale, if you wish, you can write it to Honorable Ruku and tell him the economic benefits of the military. And Honorable Mchomba, our military don't go out to protect us for any personal gain. It's a patriotic duty. Honorable Lotte.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Noting that the military recruitment will be starting on the 28th of this month, and there's a lot of anxiety from the young people, I'll wish to ask the Cabinet Secretary the following questions. One, could the Cabinet Secretary explain the measures that are put in place to curb serious malpractices like bribery and nepotism during the military recruitments, so as to accord poor but well-deserving Kenyans fair opportunities in the recruitments? Two, I wish to ask the Cabinet Secretary to explain the affirmative action strategies that the government is putting in place to ensure that the Kenyans from the marginalized regions, such as Kachaliba and others, and Turkana, and all those other regions, are considered in the ever-elusive military jobs. And the last one, I'll wish the Cabinet Secretary to explain mechanisms that the government has put in place to enable Kenyans to report on malpractices that are witnessed during the subsequent military recruitment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Just hold for a minute. Allow me to acknowledge the following schools in the gallery. Soliat Boys High School, Soin Sigoet, Kericho. FIM School, Kimilili, Bungoma. Mukinyai Primary School, Molo, Nakuru. Hekima Marigat School Primary, Baringo South, Baringo. And these are primary schools for Molo, Mwangi Muchuki Primary School, Rombay Primary School, Lawina Primary School, Arimi Primary School, all from Molo constituency, Nakuru County. Minister, indulge me to give the member for Molo 1 minute on behalf of all of us to acknowledge the presence of those schools.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. It's indeed is a great privilege. We have 274 pupils from different primary schools in Molo constituency, starting with my own primary school, Mwangi Muchuki Primary School. Honorable Speaker, that's one of the most public school in Molo that was hardly known, that produced the Member of Parliament for Molo constituency and the chair for the Departmental Committee of Finance and National Planning. It is this school that produced the first ever MP to be re-elected since last 30 years, and therefore I'm very privileged to associate with this, my former primary school, Mwangi Muchuki Primary School. It's a great encouragement to the other schools, Mokinyai Primary School, Rumbai Primary School, Lawina Primary School, and that's why, Honorable Speaker, every time I get a chance, I invite them to come to Nairobi to observe Parliament proceedings, to see Nairobi. Because, Honorable Speaker, in my vernacular, there is a proverb that says, he who does not travel thinks his mom is the only one who is able to cook. So it is their chance to come and see Nairobi and aspire to also be members of Parliament, to be governors, to be president, to be anything that they dream to be. Because if the son of a single mother from a humble background from Mokinyai who went to public primary school, public secondary school, public university can be where he is now, then not even the sky is the limit. And I thank you, Honorable Speaker, for your indulgence.
Well, Minister, congratulations for your journey in life. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, in answering this question, I really want to urge the country and the House that they should not charge us, they should not use the benchmark of the previous recruitment. It's the first recruitment under my leadership, and it's the first recruitment under this administration. Mr. Speaker, KDF recruitment process is guided by the Constitution of Kenya, specifically Article 10(1)(c) that protects and provides for national values and principles of governance, which will bind all state organs, state officers, public officers, and all persons whenever any of them makes or implements public policy decisions. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Defense is determined to protect Kenyans from fraudsters posing as KDF recruitment agents, bent on marrying on an open, free, fair recruitment process. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, at the beginning of every recruitment cycle, eligible applicants are provided with very clear guidelines on when and where they should present themselves and how they should apply to join Kenya Defense Forces. Indeed, the public is always advised during the recruitment drive to avoid giving bribes and other favors to impersonate in the pretext that they will be assisted in securing employment in the KDF. Mr. Speaker, the aforestated notwithstanding, there are isolated instances where KDF personnel have been involved in recruitment malpractices. And to serve as a deterrence, Mr. Speaker, all suspected cases have been thoroughly investigated. Those found culpable subjected to judicial process in the form of court-martial, often leading to dismissal from service or imprisonment. And Mr. Speaker, the answer which I have provided to this House, I think in about 5 to 6 copies, I have attached Annex A that provides into the status of the completed and ongoing cases of individual officers and more so general officers who were prosecuted since the last recruitment, which was in July of last year. Mr. Speaker, that annex will show you the rank of those officers. It will show you the crime they committed, and all these officers faced the court-martial precisely because of recruitment. Mr. Speaker, the second question was explain the affirmative action strategies that the government is putting in place to ensure Kenyans from marginalized communities and regions are considered elusive for military jobs. Mr. Speaker, if you allow me, I think devolution was to solve marginalization. I am sure there are issues, but I think the term marginalized, Mr. Speaker, will be a thing of the past very soon. Mr. Speaker, KDF is conscious of the country's ethnic diversity and always promotes a national outlook among its ranks. And even you look at the hierarchy and the leadership of Kenya Defense Force, Mr. Speaker, on the face of it, represents the face of Kenya in terms of diversity, tribe, religion, and the region they come from. This is predicted, Mr. Speaker, is predicated on the Defense Force's primary role of defending and protecting the country on the basis of inclusion. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, the distribution of slots, selection, and development of KDF human capital is inherently reflected on the face of Kenya on the account of equity as required in our Constitution. One of the guiding principles, Mr. Speaker, in KDF Act of 2012 that stipulates that recruitment must reflect the diversity of the Kenyan people in an allowable proportion that ensures that the composition of the command of KDF also embraces the principle of equity and inclusivity. And Mr. Speaker, since I took over as a Minister for Defense, one of the principles that I say people will remember for me as a Minister for Defense is to make sure that the rank and the leadership of Kenya Defense Forces reflects the diversity and the communities in our country. Therefore, equitable distribution of slots to counties, sub-counties, and divisions in some places always are computed at the planning phase of the recruitment cycle, and they are based on the following parameters. Number one, national population according to the latest national census. Two, population and demography in each county, sub-county, and in some cases, some divisions. Three, KDF human resource needs on the current manning levels among KDF officers, service members, and constables. Four, current number of officers, service members, and constables from each sub-county. So, Mr. Speaker, we look at holistically the numbers of our human resource in Kenya Defense Forces. And based on that, we will look at the numbers from each sub-county. And based on that, we will create slots for every county, for every sub-county in our country. So, Speaker, sometimes we look at the socio-political variables, rural versus urban, marginalized groups and indigenous groups. Speaker, finally, the recruiting officers are required to submit to the defense headquarters daily returns to satisfy the defense leadership that quotas are being enforced. So, Mr. Speaker, for example, in a sub-county in Bungoma County, if the number to be recruited were 8 or 10, Speaker, just like IBC, we have a command center at the defense headquarters. On real time, the moment those 7 are recruited, their ID, their names, their age, everything is submitted to make sure that in between, Mr. Speaker, there were many times people were making were using a lot of corruption, where 7 people will go to the recruitment center, they are told you have been taken, and in the evening they are chased away and replaced with other people. Speaker, I really want to assure you, this House, because we are oversighted by the representatives of the people. Myself and General Ogola will make sure that the moment the 7 are recruited, our command center at the defense headquarters in real time will receive them so that nobody in this recruitment can change anything. And I want the House to take me to charge on that matter, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, finally, was the question of explaining the mechanism that government has put in place to enable Kenyans report malpractices witnessed during subsequent. Speaker, first, before I tell the country the mechanism, I want Kenyans not to bribe our officers. That's the beginning. Because the bribe taker, there must be the giver. So there are people I'm sure who are watching me. Some of them are conmen, some of them are fraudsters, some of them make cash during the recruitment. Parents, I want to talk to the parents of Kenya. Don't bribe anybody. Let your son and daughter present themselves at the recruiting center, and our officers are under obligation to make sure that each and every Kenyan is given an opportunity. Mr. Speaker, the Kenya Defense Forces recruitment drive has a lot of adverts, free to all eligible candidates. Members of the public are warned against engaging in malpractices, a view to influence the process, and they're encouraged to report any suspicious. So, Speaker, at all our recruitment centers, recruiting officers are required to make verbal announcement, reiterating the implication of non-compliance with a warning to desist. So, Speaker, this year we have asked AAC and the DCI and all other civil society organizations within the locality we are recruiting to make sure that they are on standby and our members, our officers are not vulnerable. We will give a call number where even parents can call and say there was a fraud going on. So, Mr. Speaker, I really want to ask this House that judge me, Judge General Ogola, and the entire leadership of Kenya Defense Forces on this recruitment. And I'm sure there will be a difference this time around.
Lano Siri, Badi Duale. Bed Simba of Kisauni.
Yes. Asante sana,
Mheshimiwa. Hold Bed Simba, hold, you are a joyrider. The first bite must go to the member who asked the question to ask a supplemental. I'll come back to you immediately.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I really want to appreciate the Cabinet Secretary for the exposition of the fact that we want to change the face of the military recruitment, especially the KDF. That is a very good admission and also a very good way forward from the Cabinet Secretary. Mr. Speaker, as we speak today, I think I speak on behalf of many of the parents. And the reason why I raise this question is on the basis that from the villages where I come from, parents are selling land now. And there is a price already for the job. So what the Cabinet Secretary has said is good, but I want it to be put in practice, Mr. Cabinet Secretary, because it is very easy to speak, but the young people that are actually agitated and worried want a voice that comes to you, and that is the voice that Lotte today is giving before you. Two, when we talk about marginalization, and we say that because of the sub-counties and the counties and the sub-locations, that positions are going to be given, I wish the Cabinet Secretary to note that even within their locations, there are people that are marginalized from there. So that if you go to a place like Kacheliba, for example, there will be the powerful people that will come from wherever to take those jobs from them because they are weak. I want the Cabinet Secretary to assure this House and to assure Kenyans that what you have said today, that there is no bribery. Because the challenge, Cabinet Secretary, is when we tell people do not bribe, and then you don't bribe, and the other person bribes, and have the child go to the military recruitment, the one who did not give bribe will feel disadvantaged, Mr. Speaker. I think then it's the onset of the Cabinet Secretary to ensure that we, this particular time, see that there is no person that is going to be taken because of a bribe. I wish to say this on behalf of these members. These are the representative of the people, Cabinet Secretary. Can they be allowed? Can they be allowed, just alongside the ESCC and the DCIs, to be within the precinct of the recruitment center, so that they can also be an eye to report to this House should there be malpractices? Thank you.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika kunipa nafasi ya kuuliza swali la ziada. Waziri wa Ulinzi tuna imani na wewe na tuna imani kwamba kutapatikana mabadiliko. Lakini swali langu ni, nimekusikia ukisema kwamba usajili wa wanajeshi uko huru. Lakini kuna Wakenya ambao wanakatazwa kujiunga na jeshi kwa sababu ya kimo chao. Na si wagonjwa, wanavaa viatu, wanavaa masuruale na wana afya, lakini wanakataliwa kwa sababu wanaambiwa ni wafupi. Na hiyo ufupi wao ni kwamba ni Mungu amewaomba hivyo. Kwa nini mnawanyima wasiunge na jeshi? Na hao na imani kama mnaona ni wafupi, hao ndio wanaweza kumfikia adui bila kuonekana. Kama Wachina ni wafupi zaidi na ni wanajeshi, kwa nini tunawanyima Wakenya wanajisikia kama wao hawawezi kulinda taifa lao? Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Waziri, hilo jambo litakaniwa tuliangalia kwa makini sana na tuseme uhuru kama hao tumeweka nje. Asante sana.
Thank you. I intended only one joyrider. Yegon. Okay. Give Yegon.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me also this opportunity to contribute.
It's not a contribution.
No, sorry, to ask the Minister or the Cabinet Secretary about, as late as yesterday, the day before yesterday when I was coming from my constituency, I got some people who came, around 2 of them, and asked me that there is a recruitment of Kenya Defence Forces, which is going on, which has been advised so far. And what happened is that they are asking me, how can you help? They were even coming to ask me for money, saying, give me, let's say, 300,000. I've gotten 100,000. I need another 300,000 so that my person can be employed. What I want to ask the Minister is, what measures have you taken to make sure that these people have not been exploited? Because many people have been extorted money and they are not getting those jobs. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Elisha, although he had actually dealt with your question. Elisha? Patia Elisha, you are giving to the wrong address. There you are.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I want to congratulate the CS for the statement. And looking at his history of competence, I'm confident that this recruitment will be fair. On behalf of the people of Game, what I'm asking, the list of recruitment centers, Game has 2 sub-counties. They've only highlighted Game Yala. I request that Game Wagai equally be highlighted as a recruitment center. And finally, for a long time, the people of Game, very minimal numbers were taken. But as years, I hope that this time, look at the history, you can compensate the people of Game and the numbers. And even if the soldiers, your recruiting officers who will be in Game, looking at the competence of those they are going to recruit, I hope that you can negate the appearance of the teeth, because that necessarily does not help carrying a weapon. Thank you, yes. And the Speaker, Mr. Speaker, sir.
CNN.
Thank you, Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Speaker, I just want to ask our Honorable CS, a ranking member we have served together. In the recent past, Mwingi West, during the recruitment of cadet officers, we have not had even an opportunity to have one representative in the military. What is the CS doing this time around to ensure we are included in this recruitment this year? Thank you. Cadet officer.
McClap.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am one person who has always believed one Aden Duale for high competence of doing this job. And this being our first recruitment as Kenya Kwanza government, I want to ask the minister to really be very vigilant. You need to do work on cyber crime. So Speaker, I want to report to this House that someone hacked my Facebook account, my photograph, Yeah, Mr. Speaker, it's very important.
Go and report to the police. Ask a
I
question.
have already reported, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
And it is very important for members to know
Yes.
there are people who are calling people using very important software.
Yes.
So my question is, in Baringo North, we have 5 divisions. Mr. Speaker, for a long time, when it comes to recruitment, 1 division is not being counted. It is being included as Kabartonjo, and yet we have Saimosoi division, fully with a DO, and when it comes to recruitment, for the last very many years, Mr. Speaker, that division called Saimosoi bordering like Baringo has not had an opportunity to get even a single person to be recruited into the military. Can this time, when the officers come to the ground, Mr. Speaker, ensure that as they announce the number of slots in Baringo North, then they can be shared among the 5 divisions actually in Baringo North, Mr. Speaker, so that it is fair, and then ensure what is the problem in Kenya, Mr. Speaker, is can recruitment be done and finished during the day? Mr. Speaker, immediately it goes beyond 6 p.m. That is the beginning of corruption. So can this time end at 4 across the Republic so that matters become sincere?
I needed only 2 joyriders. Now everybody wants to joyride. Yes. Oh? Kirima, I'm not giving you. You are soliciting. Okay. Is that Kagombe?
Sigor.
Sigor, member for Sigor.
Yes.
Yes, there's a light behind here. I can't see you clearly.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable.
Ask your question.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to ask our CS. We have a lot of confidence and trust that this time round, the recruitment will be different. Now, I want to ask if, for example, Pokot Central, which is Sigor constituency, has been given, let's say, 5 slots. Can it further be taken down to wards so that now there is fairness in the distribution of the recruitment, so that now the 5 slots do not go to one region? And then maybe now also reinforce the fact that let us assist the minister or the CS in ensuring that people don't give bribes. Thank you very much.
Okay, Kirima. Minister, not all those. Are small, short questions. You can answer.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, sir. My good question is to the minister. Minister, you are very much aware that in Central Imenti constituency, it has been proposed and it has gone through public participation that there will be 3 sub-counties. He meant Abu West, Abu Central, and Abu East. And it's only one sub-county, that is Abu Central, which has been declared as an recruitment center. Is it possible to have the other 2 recruitment centers, Abu West and Abu East? Is it possible? Of which I believe with your intervention is going to be possible. Thank you, sir.
Saidi Poster.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. Speaker, recently I went through the papers and saw Tana River County is also considered for this recruitment. But surprisingly, the recruitment center is Wayu. Wayu is in a different sub-county called Galedertu. Tana River sub-county, the headquarters is Hola. So I wanted assurance from the minister that the recruitment for Tana River sub-county will be done in Hola, but not Wayu, which is in Galedertu sub-county. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister. Minister,
Miss-
hold. I take two quick short words.
Okay,
Martin Wanyonyi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is just simple to the Minister. Mr. Speaker, last recruitment in July, we saw recruitment centers that have been gazetted being changed around 12 a.m. in the midnight. So can really Minister assure the House that the recruitment centers that have been gazetted will not be changed at the detriment of many of the youths who want to participate in this process? Finally, Mr. Speaker, the newly gazetted administrative units, this process is still relying on the old administrative units. Can the Minister collect this process with the current gazetted and operationalized administrative units, Mr. Speaker? Thank you.
Minister, wacha ajibu hiyo kwanza.
Mr. Speaker, there's a number of colleagues, members of parliament, or with a common question on sub-counties. And I want to state it here, number one, to Martin, Honorable Martin, that no center will be changed. At midnight, all the centers now have been published. They're in the newspapers, they're in our website. And I want to assure you, particularly under this administration, no center will be changed. But for the sub-counties, some which have been combined, for example, Honorable Member for Galole, your governor, your leadership are in consultation with our leadership at Defense Headquarters. We will make a decision. And a number of other sub-counties, we are going to make a decision. Already leaders have arrived at our offices. So the sub-counties, but the issue of sub-counties is a matter of the Ministry of Interior. We generate our list from Interior. And there are some counties which already have not been operationalized, and maybe they have a good reason. So I think we will also consult the Ministry of Interior. The Speaker, Honorable Lotte, the originator of this matter, I want to tell him that members of parliament, MCAs, politicians are no-go zone at our recruitment centers. So please don't go. You have no business there. Because you must have a business. EAC have a business. The police have a business. The youth who want to be recruited have a business. So members of parliament are not allowed. And secondly, Mr. Speaker, the honorable member for Kisauni, every job seeker must have and must qualify, and there must be qualifications. So please, there are certain checklists for you to be recruited as cadet. There are certain checklists for you to be recruited as a service person constable. It is historical. It is in all military. Mr. Speaker, I had the opportunity to serve in NYS in my many years when I was, before I joined the university. And it's NYS I realized why height is an issue in disciplined forces. So Honorable Bezinga, there are many opportunities. Short people can work in KPA. Short people, they can work in other agencies. But please, when it comes to, we want to have the best military. So let us, the way we have diluted many other professions with the people who have got fake certificates, let us live to the fidelity of the qualification of joining the Kenya Defense Forces so they can protect our country. I am sure I was asked that question, Honorable Bezinga, by many people. Honorable Yegon, we can't stop. Fraudsters are everywhere. We can't stop them right now collecting money. But I want to tell the people, in fact, that rate you have said, 400, is a standard. Even in my former constituency, the 400 is a standard. And I want, Mr. Speaker, if you allow me, please, Kenyans, don't pay. Don't pay 400. And any of our officers, Mr. Speaker, where integrity, professionalism, and high moral ground is required is in the Kenya Defense Forces. Any of our officers who wants to participate in bribery, he has no place in the Kenyan Defense Forces. That we are telling them. They can do it somewhere else. Honorable CNN is the same. I think we will discuss. Please join us at the Ministry of Defense, talk to the leadership. Honorable Elisha, yeah, the same on sub-counties. I think that is a matter which is recurring. Member for Baringo North, yes, in certain situations, we deal with and the Speaker, the member is not here. This is the problem I used to have when I was the leader of majority. That members ask questions even in committees before the answer is said, they leave. So I think good thing is when you ask a question, it's good you listen you wait for the answer.
Absolutely.
Yes. Honorable, my good friend, member for Baringo North, he asked a question and he has disappeared. But our ranking member...
Maybe he has taken my advice seriously. He's gone to the police to report.
Yes, I think he has walked to the nearest police station. The Speaker, I think I have a member for Sigor, yes. Baringo Central, you know, when we have a recruitment center, we recruit from Kenyans. The basic qualification, number one, is an ID card. So we cannot say, you must come from that sub-county or that county. But we cannot say, no, we have to balance divisions. That, I think, is not very tidy for our officers to do. Honorable Kirima, the same thing on sub-counties, which we are going to deal with. And Honorable Said, the same. From the Speaker, the common theme, and I think that one I really want to ask members who have not had discussion with our leadership on the sub-counties and why some have been merged. We are ready until before the 28th so that we can resolve those issues.
Thank you. Next question. Mama Zamzam, your hand has been up in the air throughout. What is the problem?
No, I have a question to Mheshimiwa Waziri. You know, so many people are asking about recruitment. Me, I want to ask about the safety of our soldiers while they are working. Mheshimiwa Waziri, we've seen most of our soldiers dying because of bombs when their cars are moving on top of the bombs. What have you done to make sure that we have vehicles that are bomb-proof so that we can save the lives of our soldiers? And those who died, what are you doing to compensate them? Because we've seen so many families complaining that they have not received any compensation. Thank you, Waziri.
Answer that in 1 minute. We go to the next question.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I want to assure the Member of Parliament for Mombasa that a serious modernization of our military has taken off under this administration, and by the month of November, APCs and high-quality vehicles, armored vehicles, that will protect our forces from the weapon of choice by terrorists, which is IED, will never happen again. And secondly, Mr. Speaker, on the pension and compensation, Speaker, I want to say it here that Kenya Defense Forces have the most robust compensation. If there is anyone who has not been compensated adequately, please write to me and we will answer.
Member for... Yes, what is it? Who is the member?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, on the issue of KDF recruitment, the minister has assured us... Yes.
I have not given you the floor, my friend.
Sorry.
But go ahead. Members desist from that kind of conduct. Go ahead.
As an independent member of Parliament, Honorable Speaker, we also have a right to be heard in this House. Honorable Speaker, I have a question directed to the Minister. He has assured us that the process will be free, will be fair, will be transparent and credible. Honorable Speaker, is the Minister willing to resign if the process is compromised and is found not to be free, not to be fair, not to be transparent and credible? Will the Minister be willing to resign?
Mr. Speaker, the procedure of a minister resigning, the procedure of the removal of a minister lies with the powers of this House.
Next question, 311, nominated member, and the Honorable Timothy Kipchumba. The chair does not, and the speaker does not look at any member in terms of party, your legitimacy in this house is equal to each and every other member, whether you are independent or elected under the cover of a party. So don't have any of those blinkers. Nominated MP Ali Abdisirat. We must make progress. We have many questions we need to deal with.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And thank you, Waziri, for having time. My question is as follows. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide timelines within which the family of the late Ms. Naima Abbas Amaina and the late Ms. Elama Abbas, who was expectant, would be compensated for their murder on 7th of April 2019 within an abandoned Kenya Defense Forces camp in the Diff area of Wajir County, due to an explosion from an exploded ordnance that resulted in their dismemberment. Sorry. 2, clarify whether KDF is considering providing psychosocial support to the immediate family of affected family affected by this incident. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, outline the plans underway to clear landmines and any other explosives in the northeastern area, including Wajir and Samburu, that were left after military activities in that region that pose significant threat to the safety of the local residents. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well, Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this matter of the late Ms. Elima Abbas, who unfortunately and very sad during this incident was unexpected, and Mrs. Naima Abbas, who was 13 years old, is a very, very sad matter that happened in 2019 near our KDF camp in Diff area of Wajir County. Is a matter that we discussed at the Defense Headquarters. And Mr. Speaker, through your guidance, we have, in conclusion, felt that when this matter went to court, Kenya Defense Forces won the case, but as part of our relationship with the communities in those regions and in many places, Mr. Speaker, we want to engage and we want to ask the Member of Parliament to provide us with the next of kin of Mrs. Naima Abbas and Ms. Elima Abbas, so that together we can work out an affordable compensation program which the Kenya Defense Forces want to undertake, and I want to be counted on that. So, Mr. Speaker, I think this matter should not be discussed, because we have decided that despite the court ruling, we want to, out of our social corporate responsibility, KDF values communities, because communities give us land, communities work with us in intelligence, communities do a lot of business with our camps, and because the mother was expectant and the child was 13 years, out of moral ground, Mr. Speaker, we brought our heads together, the Defense Council, which I chair, and we have found out, under the leadership of General Ogola, we have found out that we will engage the Member of Parliament, we will engage the next of kin, and we will provide the appropriate compensation, notwithstanding the court ruling.
Very well, Minister. What's your point of order, Honourable Member?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the CS. I wanted to get a clarity from CS when he said members are not supposed to go in the recruitment, because that's part of our oversight role. So I thought he needs to tell us, because it's within the Constitution. Thank you.
Well, that matter was already stayed over and wound up, and therefore I only gave you a chance because you rose on a point of order. However, that matter is already spent. So let's allow the honorable member who had asked the question to proceed with the first bite of supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I take this opportunity to most sincerely thank the Defense Secretary for having discussed the matter internally with his team and has assured us that he is doing something. Because the family has suffered. Indeed, they have suffered. In fact, the father of those teenage girls who perished have become, senile due to that incident. So mine is to thank the Minister for Defense for coming up with that amicable solution. Thank you very much indeed.
Very well, honorable member. Yes, Honorable Umi, proceed with your question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to also thank the Cabinet Secretary for his great efforts in answering the questions. But my issue is still within the issue on security. Currently in Garissa, we have the gun wielding people who are killing each other left, right, and center, and we've been dealing with it for the last 1 month and the last 1 year. Maybe just to bring to the attention of the Cabinet Secretary, how far has that issue gone? The area is within township, which is also happens to be the area he was the member of parliament before. Kunaso has a lot of insecurity and land issues. Maybe I would like the Cabinet Secretary to answer that question and tell us how far it has gone, and also the illegal transfer of the deputy OCS in that area. Maybe we can get an answer on that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, this question has been fairly dealt with. Remember, the Home Minister has accepted that they are going to give compensation, so we should not spend so much time on it. But however, Honorable Minister, as you'll be answering just the question asked by Honorable Umi, remember that you have not really answered part 3 of that question, outline the plans underway to clear landmines. You notice that? So you will also take that one. On this particular one, let me give Honorable Member the last bite, and then we move on.
Asante sana. Kwanza pongezi Mheshimiwa Waziri. Siku ya leo anga umefanya sura zetu zina furaha kwa sababu unajibu kwa ufasaha. Mheshimiwa Waziri, tumeona clip ikizunguka kwenye mtandao na yule ni brigadia ama sijui ni nani wa Sudan akiwapa vitisho. Ningependa kujua kama tuna uhusiano mzuri ama ilikuwa na maana gani, na kisha pia ningetaka kujua hawa watoto wetu waliopotezwa Mombasa wakishukiwa kuwa ni Al-Shabaab na hawakupelekwa kotini, hawajapatikana mpaka leo. Unafanya mbinu gani ili wazazi wao wajue ima wamechukuliwa hatua ama wako wapi hawa wapendwa wao? Asante sana Mheshimiwa Waziri.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think as a former ranking member, you need to help me guide the House, because supplementary questions must ideally relate to the question that I'm answering. And I really want to ask my good sisters that the matter you are asking me are more of the Interior Minister. My business and the business of defense is to protect the territorial and sovereignty of our country, so the borders. But please, that video of the brigadier of the Sudan, in quotes, Sudan National Forces, please treat it with the contempt it deserves. That is not how military officers worldwide communicate. So if he was a member of the Kenya Defense Forces, he would have appeared before a court-martial, and now he should have been in jail. Secondly, I think the matter of people disappeared. You must thank this administration, and you must thank the president. And that's why you must. There are people who don't want this government to run because part of the crimes they have committed was extrajudicial killing. Zamzam, please, as you, my good sister from Mombasa, a member of parliament, you must not relent on asking the people who killed innocent Kenyans through extrajudicial killing, the Kinotis, and those who worked in the previous administration. They must account for each and every person they have killed. And I'm happy, Mr. Speaker, I'm happy this administration, as late as yesterday, the president was categorical that—
Honorable Kaluma, what's your point of order?
Yeah, Honorable Speaker, our former majority leader is doing very well. And I'm quiet because I'm waiting for the last statement he'll make to commend him for the good work he's doing. Honorable Speaker, I'm one MP who cried when he was to leave Parliament, and I've not been disappointed. But Honorable Speaker, the standing orders for which he stood very strongly, and which he still remembers, prohibits the discussion of any person who cannot defend himself before the House. May I request that, he withdraws references to those individuals who, for good reasons in the standing orders, are protected from mention in our proceedings. Like the ones he's calling the Kinotis. I don't know who it is, but whoever it is, let us retract those. And then the minister can continue on the good note. And by the way, it's the best example of why we needed ministers in this House, Honorable Speaker. Let us not, go into that.
Thank you. That was a point of order, and let me guide that I deliberately gave it to Hon Kaluma, and he has properly covered it. That, Honorable Minister, I also want to protect you on supplementary questions that are not relevant to the question which you had been asked to come and answer before this House, because that may require substantive question and research for those such like questions. And therefore, Honorable Minister, stick to the answers, and please just avoid that small hangover. You know you were the best here during your time. Get back to your position and deal with the questions directly, and then also deal with number 3, part 3 of the question. Proceed, Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I abide by your ruling and abide by Honorable Kaluma. But unfortunately, I was taken that route by the two gracious ladies from Garissa and Mombasa. Sometimes when you are taken off Mombasa Road and you are taken to Bunyala Road, sometimes you might, you don't know what you're doing, but
Minister, you noticed they took you off route,
yes,
and they are taking you in a place where you are best at, but please go back.
Yeah, so I've gone back. Proceed. And I'm sure but let me, because Honorable Umbi is a gracious lady from my county and town, I want to assure her that there's no place for militias and gangs, not only in Garissa, for every. When we start dealing with them, both the interior and defense, because our base is around that place, the Modica base. When we start dealing with them, let us deal with them as criminals and not as clan members. And we are coming there. It's our duty to make sure that each and every Kenyan is safe. Mr. Speaker, the last part was on what we are doing on these explosives in parts of northern Kenya. Speaker, the KDF training activities, which we do in many counties in the north, are conducted in conformity with the regulations and standing orders which provides guidelines on safety measures depending on the form of training being undertaken. In this regard, training is normally implemented in designated areas, and activities are followed by comprehensive clearance of an exploded ordnance to ensure and secure public safety. In addition, Mr. Speaker, the KDF periodically deploys explosive ordnance disposal teams equipped with specialized kits to deter and dispose of explosive materials that may either be buried in the ground or concealed by vegetation. Finally, Mr. Speaker, we also do sensitization of local communities to the dangers and hazards of handling unexploded ordnance, which is a continuous process that the Kenya Defense Forces undertake. This also is conducted even within our areas that we do train our troops. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well, honorable members. We move to question 312 of 2023 by the honorable member for Moyale, Honorable Guyo Jaldesa. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the chance to ask this question. And I also join the other colleagues in welcoming Honorable Duale to the House. Could the Cabinet Secretary explain the circumstances under which the Kenya Defense Forces settled in Other Camp, Moyale constituency, and whether the prevailing conditions in the area still justify their continued presence? Question 2, provide details. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide details regarding the source of the land provided to KDF for settlement and whether there exists an agreement between the local landowners and the government regarding compensation? And finally, could the Cabinet Secretary provide justification behind KDF's decision to place beacons in people's homes, schools, mosques, and farms, which have been perceived as an attempt to acquire additional land, and further enumerate the corporate social responsibility, the CSR initiatives taken by KDF since its settlement in Moyale constituency in 1980. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, KDF established Order Camp in the early 80s for the purpose of supporting civil authority in the maintenance of peace in Moyale and its environment, particularly to deter incursions due to the prolonged regional conflict leading to the killings of Kenyans and destruction of property. It's also important to underscore that Moyale is a strategic entry point into our country and a link to the greater Horn of Africa. And against this backdrop, Mr. Speaker, therefore, the incursion experience worsened over time, reaching their peak in the 80s and continue to date, though on a reduced scale owing to increased security measures. And I'm sure, Mr. Speaker, Honorable, my good friend, Daktari, needs a camp more than any other place because of the insecurity in those parts of the country, which I think the KDF will deal with. 2, Mr. Speaker, there's cross-border cattle rustling as well as human, arms, drug, and contraband trafficking, which is rampant, and the camp plays a critical role working with other multi-agency team to mitigate this growing challenge that is compounded again by the emergency of terrorism. 3, Mr. Speaker, prior to the establishment of Order Military Camp, incursions threatened to completely disrupt the socio-economic activity of the local communities. However, due to the security umbrella provided by KDF and other multi-agency team from Order within the framework of working with other security players, Moyale town and its environs today is thriving economically. It's one of the best cities, Mr. Speaker, where you can find even a 5-star hotel. Mr. Speaker, the KDF continued presence at Order Camp is desirable, it is important, and is part of our strategic military posture to secure Kenyan borders by enabling proactive response to challenge. So, Speaker, if you look at the strategic plan of the Kenya military, or KDF, you'll find now we are going to establish, and some we have, over 5 military camps in Turkana, in West Pokot, in Marsabit, in Garissa, in Wajir, in Mandera. This is part of making sure that within the conflict in the Horn of Africa, we secure our borders from South Sudan, Somalia, Ethiopia, and all our neighboring countries, Mr. Speaker. We have 5 neighbors, 5 land neighbors, and 1 sea neighbor. Mr. Speaker, the second question was provide details regarding the source of land provided to KDF. As stated previously, KDF, Mr. Speaker, occupied Order Camp in Golbo Ward, Moyale constituency in the 80s, the 1980s, to mitigate security challenge in the then Northern Frontier District. This was one of the measures to defend the country from external aggression, thus forming a basis for then the County Council of Moyale to allocate 827 hectares of land for military use. In this connection, Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Defense initiated formal acquisition of the land in the year 2000s, when it became mandatory for all government and public land to be documented. The process, Mr. Speaker, was however not completed in time, therefore necessitating further engagement with the county government of Marsabit in 2019. Later, Mr. Speaker, the county government of Marsabit, relying on the unapproved part development, PDP, of 2004, formally allocated KDF 242.8 hectares of land to the Ministry of Defense. Then Minister of Lands, Public Works, Housing and Urban Development, Mr. Speaker, during the planning and survey in 2001 and 2003, respectively, established the total acreage of land to 827 hectares. The Ministry of Defense, Mr. Speaker, therefore, followed due process of land allocation and has it in custody the allocation letter by the county government of Marsabit, the public participation report, the approved PDP, and survey plans. The last question, Mr. Speaker, was to provide justification behind KDF's decision to place beacons in people's homes, schools, mosques, farms, which have been perceived as attempts to acquire additional land. Speaker, the placement of beacons was informed by the cadastral survey of order military land undertaken by Survey of Kenya, who are the custodians of all cadastral maps in the Republic of Kenya. During the cadastral survey, Mr. Speaker, Survey of Kenya established that there was encroachment in the order military camp. This included schools, administration offices, worship spaces, and human settlements. With reference to corporate social responsibility, Mr. Speaker, Ministry of Defense has been instrumental in promoting peace and security in the area through provision of water by constructing water pans, boreholes, boreholes drilling during the recent drought, and in areas such as Eledimtu, Gandile, Farole, Idido, Bubisa, Demo, and Saku. Mr. Speaker, I really want to urge the Honorable Member for Moyale. Since the time I became the Minister for Defense, we have made a deliberate attempt to make sure that we work with the communities very well. We had serious land dispute in Eldoret in our training camp, and we have sat with the leadership of that county, and we have resolved our outstanding issues. We are now talking to the leadership of Isiolo County, where we have a historical land dispute with our training bases. We are convening a meeting with Meru County. So every county, and Mr. Speaker, I want to undertake that Honorable Member for Moyale, no school will be demolished, no mosque will be demolished, no health facility will be demolished. We will sit with you, we will sit with the leadership of Marsabit. Kenya is big, Marsabit has enough land. You will create land for our military, and we will listen to you, and we will make sure we reach a decision that is best to the people you represent and best to KDF to promote our national security interests. I undertake to say that, please, we will formally write to you, and you will come to Defense Headquarters. You will sit with our land people, and we'll resolve this matter.
Thank you. Let me thank you, Honorable Minister, for your magnanimity in your last statement, because all this business we do here in terms of question is supposed to resolve the people's issues and actually get an amicable settlement. But then let's have the Honorable Guyo.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy with the response of the Cabinet Secretary in his off-the-cuff speech. or response, because what was written for him was actually not factual. Number one, Moyale County Council did not exist in 1980s. And when somebody says it was given to them by Moyale County Council, that's not factual. And the fact that Moyale is far from Nairobi, it does not warrant for us to receive non-factual statements or response. The role of KDF is not battling with cattle rustling, to the best of my knowledge. The role of KDF is not to combat with drugs and contraband trafficking. I think whoever wrote this statement for the minister did not do a good job. But of the CSR activities which were listed, there is no single one in Moyale constituency. All those things, and I was saying, the fact that they are saying they have done something in Saku, which is non-specific. Saku is a constituency, and you cannot say that you have done something in Saku. It needs to be, we need to be told they have done something somewhere in Saku, in this and that kind of place. But when they say this, it's not. The expansion of the area that they were given by the county government of Marsabit did not involve the community that's living around there. I'm happy that the cabinet secretary said that we shall sit together and agree on the way forward. But when people are claiming a stretch of land 15 kilometers on one side and 15 kilometers on the other side, it cannot be accepted. The people on the ground will not accept that, and it's a cause of conflict with the people and the government that we want to serve loyally. So the county government, if they get anything, any land that people are occupying, and I'm happy that you have promised to the House and the nation that no school will be demolished, no homes will be demolished, no farms will be taken away. We have some vast areas of land that we can actually give to the army if they want that kind of land. Areas which are even strategic in prevention of
Honorable
crimes.
Guyo, this is question time. So really, this must, what you are all saying must be put in question form.
It is actually, I put them.
Please.
So, I do trust and respect the CS. I want to make a request that through you, the Speaker, you authorize the Defense Committee of the House to go on a fact-finding mission to see that area for themselves, so that when things don't work the way we want, the people, the Defense Committee will be in the know. Thank you, Speaker.
Very well. Any supplementary question? There being no other supplementary questions, that Minister?
Mr. Speaker, Honorable Jaldesa is a very respectable professional. But I want to go on record that county councils existed in the 80s. And there are members of this House who their fathers were chairs of county councils. Now I'm talking about county council. So Marsabit County Council controlled Moyale then and not now. Two, Honorable Speaker, KDF has silenced the guns in North Rift. What are we dealing with in North Rift? We're dealing with cattle rustling. So it's our function. One of the functions which this House has approved, today we can be called to deal with cattle rustling. We have silenced the guns in North Rift. We have silenced the guns in Marsabit County, where the member comes from, where ethnic animosity and deaths happened. I come from that region. And that's why we are building, he knows we are building serious military camps, both for our external, to deal with aggression from Ethiopia and other areas, but to deal with internally. So Speaker, today the member knows Marsabit is the biggest gateway of drugs. He knows it. And please, because drugs is going to destroy communities. If a drug dealer, a consignment passes through our roadblocks as we are looking for terrorists, we will deal with it. So it's our mandate. We have a function to protect the country both from outside aggression and from inside aggression. Mr. Speaker, I have offered a solution, but I am seeing the member wants to go a long route of involving the Committee of Defense and Foreign Relations. That is his choice, Mr. Speaker, because it will give him extra bonga point. It will delay his time. But I can assure you, I have given you the shortest route if you want us to amicably resolve this matter. I am telling you to walk to Defense Headquarters. In our conference room, we resolve this matter like the good leaders of Uasingishu, like the good leaders of Isiolo who are coming, like the good leaders of Meru County. And I really want to ask this House, any county or constituency that has a land dispute with the Kenya Defense Forces, our first point of call is let us sit together. Because the defense, our forces must always project a posture of community. We love the community. So if you want to go to the committee, well and good, the committee will summon me and I will bring all the documents, all the ownership. But if you want to help the people of other, who I'm sure are listening to me, good leaders look for quick solutions. I'm offering you a quick solution. Please, our defense headquarters is less than 2 kilometers from this parliament. Next week, Monday, come to us. Come with the great leaders of Marsabit, including our deputy minority whip. Come with our governor. Come with Honorable Saku. Come with all the MCS. We resolve the matter amicably. But if you want to take through a Honorable Koech-led committee, I am ready for it. Thank you.
Very well. I think in all, there's good spirit to get an amicable solution for that. And Honorable Member, for your requests, whether we can take the matter to the Defense Committee. Indeed, we changed our standing order so that the questions can be asked from here. But if need be, and after you will have visited the Defense Headquarters, if you are so willing to do so, and you still feel that we take the matter to the Defense Committee, you will advise me and I will do so as you have requested. Yes, what's your last bite?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will go by the suggestion that we go to the Defense Headquarters. If that doesn't solve the problem, the other option is still open. But now that our brother Duale is from the north, and I expect him to be understanding, then let us go to the Defense Headquarters. The only problem, you know, I think he should give us a date now.
He said Monday, and therefore as soon as possible.
Monday.
All right.
Time?
Honorable Member, we can have a tete-a-tete. We are in the House. Thank you. Let's move to question 313 of 2023 by Honorable Member Phyllis Batu.
Mr. Speaker, my question to the Cabinet Secretary, Defense, is a clarification as to why CPL Jackson Kimeli Cheruiyot from Moiben, whose service number is 60621, ex-service member, served in the military for 26 years, and yet up to date, he has not received compensation for injuries he sustained in an IED explosion while he was in Kismayu on 17 June 2013. That time, he was operating a water bowser during the performance of his duties. That is what I have for the Cabinet Secretary, Mr. Speaker.
The Cabinet Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, in tandem with the service regulation of KDF, a medical board was conducted in 2014. It recommended compensation to the service member at a rate of 50%. Subsequently, his file was submitted to the Pension Office of the National Treasury for processing, leading him to being paid a disability pension lump sum in 2015. To date, Mr. Speaker, he continues to draw Kenya shillings 14,352 per month for the same compensation. So his matter is as of that. We have paid him, we don't owe him anything, and both the National Treasury and KDF have done their bit.
Honorable Bato.
Okay, what about the compensation, this amount which is supposed to be paid? Is it the Ministry of Defense to follow up this matter, or where does the officer now go for the remaining, the balance, the lump sum?
Professor, you seem to indicate that not all the monies have been paid. Minister has had any other supplementary question? Yes, Honorable. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to join the rest of the members in this House to really thank the CS Defense for being available. Whenever you look for him in his office, he is readily available. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Having said that, Honorable Speaker, I want to ask the Honorable CS that we have had incidents where there are explosives in areas where the military has trained. Sometimes civilians or even children playing, they are injured by the IEDs. How are they compensated? What measures do you take to ensure that those families too are compensated? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think the question by Honorable Phyllis Bartow, I think my question is very clear. Maybe the member did not, your ex-corporal Jackson Kimeli did not give you, of Kenya, 3rd Kenya Rival, did not give you full details. I have said it according to our regulations. A medical board was conducted in 2014, and it recommended compensation for this service member at a rate of 50%. Subsequently, all the process up to the National Treasury was undertaken for processing, leading to him being paid disability pension lump sum fund in 2015. To date, as per our regulations, he earns 14,352 per month on the same compensation. Those are factual. If he's not getting it, we are ready to provide evidence. I think the second question, Mr. Speaker, even though I've answered earlier, that must be the member of parliament, a member of Embo County, if I'm right. Where? Meru, not Meru. No,
Honorable
yes.
Minister, proceed. That's
yes.
the honorable member for Meru. Nominated.
Nominated, yes,
Mr.
Mr. Speaker.
The former trade union.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, it is good, particularly when you're in the House and it's on live TV, it's good to mention members by their names. Then one time, you know, Speaker, you are in the House, you say that one. It's not, so I didn't want to go that route. I think I've answered, and I'll give the answer, that we have an elaborate plan to make sure that all the ordinance we use during training does not affect our members of the public. But I'm sure the clerk at the table office or at the front can give an answer, which is I've elaborated here to the member, nominated member from Meru. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well, let's move to question 314 of 2023 by the honorable member for Suna West, Honorable Peter Masara.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, before I ask the question, I'll ask you, because it's the last question, at the end of which you'll give me even 1 minute there was a supplementary question concerning already dispensed with question, which is directly related to my sub-county, and which is administrative. I may not, it's not a must, I'll get the answer here, but it can help the minister because it is an outstanding issue, which I have written several times to the defense forces, but it has not been implemented. So I'll request you that after the answer, you just, when I'll be giving my supplementary question, I divert a bit and give that question, of which it will not be a must. He answers it here, but he can administratively handle the issue.
Thank you. We shall see when you'll have brought out the question.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, that was nominated Member of Parliament, Honorable Dorothy Mudhoni, of the nominated member of the UDA party. You may proceed, Honorable Masara. That was for record purposes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Cabinet Secretary of Defense, and it is question number 314 of 2023. Could the Cabinet Secretary explain the circumstances under which Mr. Churchill Odhiambo Osano, an ex-soldier in the Kenya Defense Forces, was forcefully evicted from the Department of Defense married quarters within the camp? 2, state when Mr. Churchill Odhiambo will be allowed to access the camp to collect his personal belongings that were locked up since the forceful eviction. And finally, state when Mr. Churchill Odhiambo will be paid disability pension and compensation since he was discharged from the service on medical ground as a disabled person on 31st August 2019. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, ex-senior Sergeant Odhiambo vacated the barracks as his run-out date, ROD, of 30th August 2019 approached, abandoning his family therein. Speaker, so his date of discharge was on 30th of August 2019. And before then, he abandoned his family therein in the camp. Efforts to have him return to the barracks to hand over the government quota was very unsuccessful. Members of his family, Mr. Speaker, however, continued to stay in the barracks 4 months beyond the ex-service members' ROD. ROD, Mr. Speaker, is once your date of retire reaches, you are an Honorable Dismas Baraza can attest to, because he's a former member of KDF, you have no choice, otherwise you have to vacate the quotas, the government quota. So this member disappeared. They said, his family said, for 4 months. This, Mr. Speaker, was untenable within the regulations of Kenya Defense Forces and standing orders, and the family was advised that it was not possible for them to stay on indefinitely. Consequently, Mr. Speaker, the spies voluntarily, his wife voluntarily relocated to Buruburu to live with her brother. Indeed, the said brother assisted his sister to shift together with the children and the household items, and therefore there was no forceful eviction, no personal item remained in the barracks. On the disability pension, Mr. Speaker, ex-senior Sergeant Odhiambo was enlisted in the KDF on the 26th of February 2007 and was initially discharged on a compassionate grounds at his own request, and the file, Mr. Speaker, is there, via discharge instruction dated 24th of April 2019. He is redressed on May 2nd, 2019, and he requested to be discharged on medical grounds. Mr. Speaker, I'm ready to provide, but these are the documents, Mr. Speaker, that in the Defense Council, the Air Force Commander signs, the Army Commander signs, the Navy Commander signs, the CDF signs, and ultimately I sign as the chair of the defense. So this ex-senior Sergeant Odhiambo requested to be discharged on medical grounds due to his injuries sustained while in service. He got a permanent hearing loss and a major depressive disorder. Mr. Speaker, the redress was granted to him from his unit commander all the way to the then defense minister. The redress was granted, and the reason for the discharge was amended to read on medical grounds, and new instructions were issued on May 24, 2019. His date of discharge was given as 30th of August 2019. Speaker, the medical board conducted an award, and he was given 45% medical pension compensation, 30% for hearing loss, 15% for major depressive disorder. And in this regard, Mr. Speaker, his file was submitted to the Pension Office of the National Treasury on 23rd of October 2019, followed by the disability claim on November 14th, 2019. The delay in settling his pension arose following the annulment, Mr. Speaker, of the KDF pensions and gratuity regulations of 2017 by this House, the National Assembly, in 2018. This led to delay in processing his military disability pension as from October 2019. This, however, Mr. Speaker, was approved, and a pension assessment board was established via the Defense Council instruction dated July 2022. He has since visited the Pension Office of the National Treasury to change his pay point, and his file is being processed accordingly. Mr. Speaker, I want to assure Honorable Masara, I will take it myself and my office to make sure the National Treasury now and the pension fund pays his dues within the next 30 days. And I come to assure, because that is his voter, is his constituencies. Now a file and everything is there. Honorable Masara, please write to me, and my officers will follow up to Treasury so that ex-Sergeant Odhiambo is paid his due, which is his.
Very well, Honorable Masara.
Thank you. Thank you, Bwana CS, for the response, but I'll kindly request your able office to provide documentation to his discharge, because I have a very authentic document from several establishments, the Kenya Commission of Human Rights, the National Council of Persons Living with a Disability, Kituo cha Sheria Legal Advice Center, where they wrote to KDF, but the KDF never responded. So, Chair, that take us back. It's not only this guy, this particular officer got an opportunity to reach me out to ask this question on his behalf. How many other officers are there who were dismissed, have not been compensated to date, who are now suffering? And it brings another question, Mr. Speaker. Do KDF usually provide psychological support to such officers once dismissed? Because you can imagine somebody was earning, he has been dismissed, from 2019 to date he has not been compensated. How do such an officer survive, Mr. Speaker? That's a food for thought for us, and it's a food for thought for the CS, so that they can look into ways. These are somebody who has served this country as a soldier. Now that is disabled. Do we abandon them that way, or there is something we can do as a country to protect them? Mr. Speaker, my other question was, it was on the socio-political variables on the recruitment, Mr. Speaker. The Suna West constituency recruitment is going to be done, but it's not going to be done at the sub-county headquarters. Sub-county headquarters in at Pinyoye, but the recruitment is going to be done at Bondo. I've written several letters, even in the 12th Parliament, to change the recruitment center to be at the headquarters. Two, the same Suna West constituency is a cosmopolitan, and even the majority indigenous, there are so many sub-clans, like the Wanyara, the Wanje, the Kamngongo, of which nobody is in the KDF. So, Mr. Speaker, as they'll be looking for issues of socio-political variable, they need to consider such a sub-county so that each and every clan can boast of having even one KDF officer, because they become pride of such a clan. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Any other supplementary on that? In the absence of the same, I may guide that the last two questions, because they are very substantive, and the minister can be availed again another time to deal with them. But on the first two, I think let me call upon the minister to answer you. Proceed, Minister.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. I think I've answered, and I assured the Honorable Masara that I will follow up with the National Treasury Pension Fund, because there's something a minister said the other day, I don't know what, one government approach. So let me also use that one government approach. But as I provide documents, because our documents are there, I would also be very happy, Honorable Masara, if you provide me with those documents from human rights and the other groups, so that I can see why they were not responded. Those letters were not responded to, because in defense they respond. But Mr. Speaker, just to say, we have a very robust insurance scheme and policy for our retired officers called DEFMIS. And I'm sure you asked the member if he was contributing before he left the discipline force, then he must be enjoying a very robust. But there were some of our officers who never contributed. They didn't see the value. Secondly, for our serving officers, Mr. Speaker, we have the state-of-the-art wellness center. Our officers who get injured within the country, outside the country, we make sure that they get all the psychosocial support. So we will ask the Defense Committee to visit our wellness center, Mr. Speaker. But Mr. Speaker, on the issue of now the recruitment, you know, the member was talking about many clans. We don't recruit clans. We recruit Kenyans. And the first thing we get is an ID card. So I am very sorry to say that if I go that route, then this house, everybody will bring his clan. So, and they are Kenyans. When they appear, we don't ask them, which clan are you? But because you have raised an issue on the location, please, before, maybe tomorrow, you write a letter to either me or to the CDF, so that we discuss and we will call you and agree before 28th what we can do to make sure that the most appropriate location, including even the cosmopolitan. The cosmopolitans are Kenyans. If they're in that cosmopolitan, they came from Bungoma, they came from Garissa, they came from Nyeri, from Kisumu. They are Kenyans, so they must be recruited. But please write, and I think by latest Monday we will call you and we will make a decision. We want to make the recruitment available to a wider section of the Kenyan society. The same problem the Honorable Member for Galole had it, so we want to address all those collectively.
Thank you, Minister. You still have something? Yes, Honorable Masara.
Mr. Speaker, on the same note, just for information, there is one location between Suna West and Suna East called Nyabisawa location. This location was hived from Suna West to Suna East during the boundary by IEBC. The residents of this particular location are really suffering, Mr. Speaker. Reasons being, during recruitment, if they go to Suna East, they are told you belong to Suna West. When they go to Suna West, they are told you belong to Suna East. So we are doing a lot of disservice to youths of this particular location. So the minister need to take note that Suna Nyabisawa location is officially under Suna East location. So all residents who were born before 2013, when Migori County, Migori constituency was subdivided, their documentation will show they were born in Suna West. But now, currently, they are members of Suna East, politically, administratively. So this one need to, because for the last 5 years of recruitment, Nobody has been recruited there because of that confusion. So this needs to be corrected also, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for granting me this opportunity.
Very well, and I think the minister was magnanimous again enough to indicate that you put all these things in writing. In fact, he insinuated that he would want to have a meeting with you because he also wants to look at the documents you have. I want to guide that you proceed and do that right up, including what you have just said lastly. Like I said earlier, this is intended to actually make the people get the services. And if that can be achieved, it's very, very good. And let me thank the minister because you have candidly answered the questions. Some of them even giving timelines that in 30 days, this should have happened. And this is what we intended to have. So, yeah, and that's very, very good. And I think this is because the minister, having been a ranking member, went through the earlier 10th Parliament and other Parliament before where we had the question time and ministers being put on notice. So I really want us to stop this now, allow the minister to go, so that we move to the next order. But Honorable Kamket, let me give you the last bite. Proceed, Honorable Kamket.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I apologize, Mr. Speaker, for coming at the tail end, but thank you for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I have one question for the Able Cabinet Secretary. Could the Cabinet Secretary, as a policy matter, together with the Department of Defense, consider, Mr. Speaker, using other considerations other than academic in the recruitment of military officers, so that, Mr. Speaker, there are Kenyans who are otherwise enabled and they will be able to defend this country if given the opportunity. And I refer, Mr. Speaker, to those Kenyans who have not had the opportunity to go to school properly, not because they don't want to go to school, but for lack of opportunity, especially among the pastoralist communities where he comes from. And history has proven, Mr. Speaker, that even during the colonial times, there were special regiments of unschooled officers.
So what's your question? Because you were
I've actually asked a question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We've wind up here. You had an interest, Honorable Maungu. What is your interest? And then we close this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Allow me also thank the Honorable Minister for being very articulate in responding to our issues. Just like my good friend, Honorable Kamtet, has just been talking about the recruitment that is coming by the chair. We have a lot of interest with the recruitment that is happening across the country. And year in, year out, Mr. Speaker, cartels have emerged, taking money from our parents and villages for the recruitment that is happening, Mr. Speaker. This matter is currently happening in our various constituencies across the country. Mr. Speaker.
Yes, what's your point of order, Honorable Didmas Berasa?
It's okay.
You have the mic. Proceed. Give Honorable Baraza another mic.
Yeah.
Use the one on your left.
I want to thank you, Mr. Speaker. When I am 100% sure that that question was properly answered, unless if the honourable member had just come in this house. So we have other matters on the order paper. I think from your communication, the minister has done very well. I think we'll just release him and we proceed.
Thank you. Indeed, Honorable Maungu, this matter had been dealt with, but let me give you 30 seconds to just conclude what you say.
The member was just spoken is my good friend, Mr. Speaker, and we had an issue that we didn't complete outside. So he's trying to square it on the floor of the House. That's why he's taking on me on the same matter. That aside, Mr. Speaker, I did come in late, yes, and I just wanted to have confirmation from the good friend, Honorable CS, now that the recruitment is on. Are we assured that it will be fair and square to our
Oh,
members?
it was thoroughly dealt with.
Asante.
Yes, leader.
Honorable Speaker, thank you very much. I want to very, very sincerely, on behalf of the majority side and members of this House, to thank you, Cabinet Secretary, for a wonderful job well done. I think you have given us the marking scheme of how Cabinet Secretary should answer questions in this House. As you go to talk to your fellow colleagues, they come here sometimes and they read long and acres of statements, which do not help these members. But you have seen, a lot of members stayed here for you because of the way you are eloquently speaking on behalf of government and expressing yourself. But sometimes you have a cabinet secretary, he starts and everybody else leaves because probably they're not making sense, or probably they're just saying things that members don't want to hear. But I think you have said what members want to see here, you have made sense, and you have expressed government policy very, very well. And your research was very well. We want to thank you, Cabinet Secretary Duale, for a good job well done. Pass our sincere gratitude to the President for introducing this question time. Asante sana, and God bless you.
Thank you. The House has other businesses to conduct. Okay. Minister, for Kamket's question and any small remark.
Mr. Speaker, that's a very, very controversial statement by Honorable Kamket. And he shared this with me when we were in North Rift. And I told him we will discuss it behind the tent. Now that he has, now that he has brought to the fore, and serious councils like Honorable Kaluma are sitting here, I think, Chair, I will not answer that. Maybe let the House decide on the recruitment criteria. Because the next question I'll be asked is, then why do people go to school? So, Mr. Speaker, I think Honorable Kamket, when we were in Chelimugot, he made a lot of sense, and I really agreed with him. But it's a matter to be discussed, taken to National Security Council, taken to Cabinet, come to the House as a policy, and then he will have his time. Maybe in the third recruitment. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. You are now free to go back to your other businesses and matters of government. Next order.
Order number 10, the Pensions Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 44 of 2022, second reading.
Yes, Honorable Didmas Baraza.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to move the Pensions Amendment Bill 2022. And I will begin by saying that the object of this bill, Honorable Speaker, is to amend the Pensions Act Cap 189 so that we can provide a timeline upon which the pensions can pay pensioners when it falls due. Honorable Speaker, the House will agree with me that the law as it is now, it doesn't provide a timeline on when a person who have retired will be paid his or her pension, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we have millions of Kenyans who have suffered in the hands of pension schemes.
Order, Honorable Didmas Barasa. You really must move this bill to be read the second time. So go back and begin properly that you are begging to move this bill the second time, and then proceed.
Honorable Speaker, thank you for giving me this opportunity, and I beg to move the Pensions Amendments Bill 2022 for a second time. Honorable Speaker, that is fine?
Proceed.
So, Honorable Speaker, the essence of my amendments is to put to an end the suffering that many Kenyans have gone through. Honorable Speaker, I want to persuade the House that when an individual contributes to the pension scheme, that money doesn't belong to the pension scheme, but it belongs to the member, Honorable Speaker. And after that member has retired and the pension has matured, it is not a favor that the pension does to those individuals, but it is their right. Delaying to release their pensions for years, Honorable Speaker, it is not only uncouth, but it's ungodly and it's unconstitutional, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I know that it's a fact that many Kenyans have died before accessing their pension. Many Kenyans have waited for more than 10, 15 years before accessing their pension. Mr. Speaker, even during question time, the majority of questions that dominates on the order paper are questions to do with when so-and-so is going to be given their pension. So, Honorable Speaker, to end and put to a stop the untold sufferings of many Kenyans is to ensure that we put a timeline that nobody will wait for his or her pension more than 90 days. Honorable Speaker, I know that Kenyans who have retired have spent millions of shillings paying brokers at the pension corridor offices in the name, in quote, pushing the file, and you wonder how heavy a pension file that they have to be pushed by paying some money. Honorable Speaker, I want to persuade the House and ask the House to support so that we put to an end the untold suffering of citizens of this republic from Bungoma to Kilifi, from Turkana to Kwale, and in every corner of the citizens of this country, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, it is also a fact, Honorable Speaker, that the reason as to why Kenyans contribute happily to the pension scheme is because they have plans that after they have retired, they will set up a business, that after they have retired, they will use the same pension money to be able to advance their good life, to be able to continue paying for their medical bills, Honorable Speaker, because after you have retired, even the insurance scheme, the medical scheme that we enjoy comes to a stop, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we know that Kenyans are not paid too much money in terms of their salaries, and they spend their salaries paying for school fees of their children, hoping that by the time they retire, they will be able to use their pension to continue footing and paying their other bills that they are supposed to pay, Honorable Speaker. And I don't want to belabor, but I just want to ask my very good friend, who has also told me that yesterday he received a delegation of more than 200 people from from Kilifi County, who told him that indeed they have been suffering. They have made endless trips to Nairobi. Some have died, and their money has gotten lost. So I want to ask the Honorable Owen Baya, Member of Parliament for Kilifi North, the able Deputy Majority Leader, to second.
Able Deputy Majority Leader, Dr. Owen Baya, MP Kilifi North, please proceed and second.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Honorable Speaker, this motion that is being tabled by our good friend, Honorable Didmas Baraza, is actually on time. You know, when you don't give pensioners their money, you are actually shortening their lives. At times like this, when the economic times are hard and money is scarce, and then we deny pensioners money because of files need to be pushed, and there's a backlog of files at Treasury, then we miss the point why pension should actually, in the first instance, exist. Because when you retire, you want to have a comfortable life. You have had your time at work, you have made a good contribution to the nation, but when you retire, the salary is not coming. It's cut short immediately. When it is cut short immediately, then now you are told you have to wait for 2-3 years for you to get your pension. This person suffers. Actually, a lot of time the lives of people have been cut short, not because of anything, but because the little comfort that this person had while he was working is cut, because there is no salary now and pension takes 3 years to come. Honorable Speaker, we need to stop the suffering of pensioners. Pensioners, even those who have served in high positions, and probably because of exigencies of life never retired with any savings. The only saving they have is their pension, but it is deliberately delayed inordinately in such a way that the family of this person suffers, the children of this person cannot go to school. This person, because of his age, requires constant medication for pressure, for sugars and other diseases. He cannot get them, and yet his money lies in treasury. Honorable Didmas Baraza, I want to congratulate and thank you that today we need to reduce the amount of time for pensioners to give them money. I think pensioners out there and Kenyans out there are celebrating you today for thinking about them, for caring for them, for thinking that this is the time that pensioners need for the first time to have their money faster. You know, teachers who were I worked with for many years, they retire. They have educated, used the little money, they've taken loans here and there, and they hope when they retire, they go home and have a comfortable life. But that's where the hardest life begins. They watch the children they have educated, they have taken to school, living a good life. But when you retire as a teacher, that's the beginning of a very miserable life, because your pension will come after 5 years. You go to TSC, you're told stories. You go to Treasury, you have to have a broker. Even the little money that you have, you're saving, you use it to get that pension. Honorable Speaker, I think it is time, in line with the Kenya Kwanza, that nobody will be left behind. Kenya Kwanza mantra, no one should be left behind. We should not leave pensioners behind. The people of Kilifi, the pensioners of Kilifi suffer. Because by the time this guy gets pension, he will have used the bus almost 100 times on a trip to Nairobi, back and forth, back and forth. Before this guy left work, probably he could afford an air ticket. He could travel probably by his car, he's comfortable. But he used to have a good life then. Now you are reducing him to having to take the bus for 8 hours, 12 hours to get to Nairobi. Come and stay in the streets of Nairobi because he cannot afford a hotel. He stays in the streets of Nairobi or sleeps in a hotel, you know, in the restaurant at tea room, waiting in the morning to go to get his file moved 1 inch. He has to stay again another day. The file moves another inch. By the time he is finished, he is even sick. He's gotten pneumonia because of the cold in Nairobi and all that, and sleeping in the court floor. Honorable Speaker, it is time we ended the suffering of pensioners in this country. And I want to tell the guys in Treasury, they need to style up. Why is it that somebody must push his file? And actually, sometimes you receive, the Deputy Leader of Majority, help me, take me to Treasury. This guy worked when he was alone. He suffered, he sweated. Why is it that now when he has to get pension, he has to get somebody to take him there to ensure that he gets pension? Why is it that now when he must get his pension, it is his money, hard-earned sweat. He's not borrowing it from anybody. It is his money. But before he gets that money, he sweats for it. I think this House, this 13th Parliament, needs to put its foot down by changing the law to ensure that if it is 1 month, if it is 1 week, if I retire and I receive my last paycheck as a worker in July, my next pension should come in the next month, August. I should have my pension in my account so that I can continue with the pace of my life. But I want to urge this House, and I want to thank you, Honorable Didmas Barasa. You're a good man. You're a man who thinks about the people who are suffering. You have yourself suffered in many years, and you know you're empathizing with people. And I want to thank you sincerely. And, Honorable Speaker, I second this motion.
Thank you, Honorable Owen Baya. I now propose the question that the Pensions Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 44 of 2022, be now read a second time. There are so many requests. I'm searching for Honorable Peter Kiungi. give Honorable Peter Kiungi the mark, the MP for Kangema. You are recognized.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I start to support the bill, and I want to thank the mover, Honorable Barasa, and also want to thank him a lot also for his commitment for the workers. I wish to know his background because I'm in the Labor Committee, and I have come across a number of legislations focused mostly to help those who are employed. Mr. Speaker, the issue of pension has been coming even in our committee. And we want to put it clearly that the issue of moving the retirement age from 55 to 60 was because of pension. When the government found itself that it doesn't have money to pay pensioners, then it was forced to move the retirement age to 60. And we must come up with a clear, conclusive work plan on how to fund the pensioners. Me, I remember when I was in primary school, when a teacher was, the time for a teacher came to retire, when we were young, those are allowed early 80s. You could find a great celebration when the teacher gets his pension, he prepares a party for retirement, and everybody celebrates. And it felt that the teacher has really retired, and you can find a change of life during his retirement. But when NSSF started using the money for retirees to do development, that's where the problem started hitting the workers, because all the funds that the workers had saved were channeled to projects which mostly were not prepared to make money for the workers. Their focus was people to make money on behalf of the workers through corrupt deals. Mr. Speaker, many have suffered, and many has gone through the challenge of the pension. Everybody, every member of parliament who interact with his constituents, the biggest issue is people who are coming to help ask you, assist us to push my pension, whereby they send out to Treasury, you are told the file has not reached somewhere. There are a lot of bureaucracy in it. Therefore, this must be put in law. The timeline whereby Honorable Baraza is putting it in a bill that should not exceed 90 days. Mr. Speaker, now I think we are happy because sometimes the accumulation of the NSSF amount or pensioners fund was very slow. When the contribution of the worker was 200 and the contribution of the government was 200. Therefore, it was amount to around 400. To accumulate enough fund to be able to pay these workers, it was not possible. But now that we have moved to percentage, and this money is tripling, the government will be able to use the percentage, whereby a worker is paying 6%, and the government is putting 6%. This money is now available. And I know the government will not belabor a lot. I wish to call upon the workers. When you make enough contribution, 200 per 200 that was being contributed earlier on, it could not have managed to fund that account. But now when we are going on a percentage, I know as the member is putting it, even if we can put some supplementary revolving fund, that after the accumulation of the percentage amount gets to a point to recoverable, we will be able to get this money. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, this is the timely, because now the contribution is rising very high, because now we are moved not from the 200 for government and 200 for the worker. Now it's 6% for the worker and 6% for the government. And by that, we will be able to accumulate the fund very easily. But now the law should be clear. Before we start going again to investment, that the NSSF started doing at I think, at Bakassi, which most of them failed. Let's first of all, workers get all their money before any decision to make contribution. And in their budget, we must go ahead in the committee that is in charge of the budget for NSSF, that in every budget, the priority should be the pensioners. They should not introduce other things. They should not start the other investment until they have solved the issue of pensioners. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I support the bill, and I want to congratulate the member. I have seen his support for the workers and his good thought on how we can support those people who are suffering. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Peter Kiungi. The Honorable Omboko Milemba.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and let me really appreciate, as I congratulate Honorable Didmas Baraza for moving and walking the journey to have this bill come to the House. And let me indicate that this has been one of the most crucial suffering by the workers of this country. All the workers except the armed forces, and I'll be speaking to that. And more so the teachers of Kenya who have suffered, and many of them have died along the way before receiving their pensions. Many teachers of this country who have paid lots of money to cartels within the pensions department and treasury because they were being lied to that by paying a certain amount of money, then their files would be moved an inch, and that takes well over 3 to 5, 6, even sometimes 8 years before they get their pensions. Honorable Speaker, at the Treasury, where we have the pension department, there also doesn't seem to be any plan or any accord of agreement on what timelines it will take for an officer who has retired, a teacher who has retired, to get his pension. And it has now taken Honorable Didmas Baraza to propose, and which I support fully, that pensions be paid immediately after 90 days from the time when the officer retires. In this case, when a teacher retires, within 90 days, that teacher should be getting his pensions. And, Honorable Speaker, I want to further indicate that what happens in the retirement department, when somebody is employed, he gets a letter. But, Honorable Speaker, 1 year to your retirement, you also receive a letter indicating clearly that Honorable Mboko or teacher so-and-so or worker so-and-so number this, you will be retiring at a given date. That letter comes exactly 1 year before your retirement date. Interestingly, when you retire, now the government officers and the pension department starts behaving like that's when they start assembling your documents for retirement. Yet, by the time when you receive that 1 year notice, you are asked to send a number of documents, including your pay slip and blah, 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 to the pensions department. So this has been a source of not only anguish and injury to the workers of this country, most of the teachers of this country, but it's also a conduit to completely eat away the entire pension by the time it's being paid. The amount of bribes and other monies that the worker will have paid to the pension department officers, and this has to be said as it is in black and white, is a lot. Leave alone the number of journeys that the worker would have paid to Nairobi. And by the time these workers get this money, if they are lucky to get the money, they are completely exhausted, have taken so many other loans, they are so poor, and most of them end up dying even before they get the pension. Honorable Speaker, let me indicate that the people who work also in this country and sometimes may have served the country for over 30 years, and by the time they are almost retiring, would get a challenge in their own workplace. And most of this happens with teachers. And it happens because in the old pension scheme, which is the one that is not the superannuation scheme, if you lose your job, even if you are remaining with a 1 year to retirement, then you lose your entire pension. This is another area, Honorable Dismas Baraza, in which I was following keenly, and which I have also put in the system to come here, that why should a person who had been working for government, a teacher has worked for government for 31 years, on the 32nd year, this teacher is dismissed. And upon his dismissal, he completely loses the entire pension that would have gotten because he has lost the job during his last year, which is the 32nd year. And he has a whopping 31 years of service to government, and he can now not get that pension. This is another source of suffering to the workers, not only teachers, because the bosses in the offices then end up blackmailing the worker towards the end of his service that, you know, I can now just deal with your pension. So these workers and these teachers become slaves. So I think one other thing that should be done, and an amendment that we could bring to this bill, is to completely make the pensions department